Walker Farris. This is day one. So here we go. I haven't seen this trial. Don't know what's going on with this trial, but I'm going to bring it on here for you. Again, on my channel, I don't do a whole lot of talking. I do some commentary, but not a lot. You will hear me on and off. So here we go with day one of the husband burned murder trial here on the Outcast podcast. If you hear my puppy in the background, I am sorry. Here we go.
23 CR 0715. We're going to start opening statements in a few minutes. We have some media requests over, in addition to what we dealt with last week. I'm going to deal with those in just a second. All right. So I have someone from says Lacey in crime, but I thought it was like live in crime. Law and crime. Okay, that's what I thought. All right. All right. Are you going to be using anything other than your phone, or do you have? So you're plugged into their feed, so you're good. Okay. So yeah, you can use their feed for whatever. I'm going to give all y'all some other instructions. I anticipate as this case progresses, it's going to get more attention, and so we're going to have more folks join us, which is fine. But my goal will be to, if y'all have any questions or concerns or what y'all need to be doing, let me know. I talked to the Court TV folks and kind of gave them the outline of what I wanted last week. So I'm going to kind of go back over that with y'all. All right, so I have the Tribune. Who's from the Tribune? All right, and you're wanting to use your phone to record and then also take some photographs. All right, I'm going to give y'all some guide rules on photographs in just a second. And then this is something else from Court TV, but I thought I already signed theirs. Maybe I didn't. But I thought I had someone from CBS or some other local. All right. All right, just print it off and give it to Tracy. What are you going to be doing other than sitting in the room? Tapped into their feed. All right. And all right, so here's what I told them about. They got everything set up in the courtroom. I'm not crazy about it. It's not the way I wanted to handle it. And I'll probably do things differently next time, but we've gotten a new system since then that should be able to handle all this because we already have cameras in the courtroom, as y'all can see. But the feed is not set up the way that I think we could do it the way it needs to be handled, but maybe I can do that next time, and definitely going to do something different with the audio. But anyway, we'll deal with that next time y'all come in or want another courtroom. To the extent that anyone wants to take photographs, y'all can take photographs in the courtroom. If y'all want to take photographs of the defendant coming in or leaving, that's fine. Don't get anything with the jury. That's the biggest thing. We identified them when we gave them their number paddles, but after that, we've been referring to them by number. They don't want to be involved in this process and be publicly introduced to anyone. So keep them out of it. If you are going to want to do any kind of coverage outside the building or even in the hallways in the building, my goal is to be as cooperative with y'all as possible. All right. I just want to know where you're going to be and where you're going to be doing something. And I want you to check in with the court administrator's office, and I think Mandy Grizzle is going to be the one that would designate. And it's not really more of, I want to limit where you are, it's where the best place for you to be would be. So we have other court that's going to be going on. We have all every conference room in this building is booked. There are people in them. The courthouse is completely filled. So if you're recording in front of Judge Baker's courtroom, it's likely there are going to be people coming in and out of there. So Mandy can probably guide you better where in the building the best place to be would be to set up if you want to have a, live on scene reporter talk about whatever. If you're going to do that and bring in another camera crew for that purpose, I'm fine with that. Just let her know what you're doing and when you're planning on doing it. I probably don't have a lot of control about what y'all do outside, except that the jurors are going to be parked outside. There's going to be a designated spot for the jurors for the rest of the week. So I want you to avoid that area. I think that's going to be inside underneath the parking deck. So y'all probably wouldn't want to do a shot under there because you're not going to have good light, etc. When I talked to the court TV folks about it last week, they said, well, we would probably rather do the front of the courthouse anyway. It's a better shot. But then someone set up this afternoon on top of the parking deck, which I don't really, and shot back toward the back entrance of the building, which I don't really care. Again, it's making sure you're out of sight of the jurors. I also have security concerns. And so if you're filming around the building and the building is going to be in the shot, I would prefer that you check in with security and let them know what you're doing. They are not going to tell you that you cannot film. They may have a preference as to what your sight lines are. And that's because of security concerns. It's not that I think y'all are going to do anything else. I'm afraid of the guy who's going to show up next week with the camera and start taking pictures of the courthouse and video and everything, and then saying he's with the media and no one pay him any mind, and then him come back in a few weeks and do something else. Okay, so again, I'm not going to tell y'all can't do something, but security may say, can you shoot from this angle? And you can do that because we have cameras and things around the building. Okay, so if anybody has any questions or concerns about any of that, just when we're at a break or the end of the day or beginning of the day, give me a shout. And then, like I said, if you're doing something inside the building, check in with Mandy. She may want a deputy around y'all as well, just to make sure everyone leaves y'all alone. But the jurors are going to be in the back, and I'm going to have a bailiff with them when they come and go. Did I ask if anybody? I don't think I asked if we had any smokers in the group. I'll ask them that when I do my charge, my opening. All right, so I've signed everybody's Rule 22s that I have. Tracy will print out yours, and we'll take care of that. All right, anything else we need to take up before we get started with the jury?
Judge, the only thing is that after we do our openings, we can take a short break.
We will take a short break. The camera crew wants to do a short break so they can reset that camera so it's out of the way of everything too. They're there for openings, and they're going to move it back here for. They're going to move it a lot, but they're going to move it closer to the speaker than where it is currently. All right, for the lawyers, I know y'all didn't ask for the additional scrutiny. If there's some issue that happens because of that, or y'all need a break, or things go sideways and you need a recess to go compose yourself or something, just let me know. We'll manage it however we need to. It's going to be we all got used to doing this during COVID, and we've kind of gotten out of the habit of doing it regularly. Maybe something I decide to start doing more often next year. We'll kind of see. All right. I'm going to talk to them. There are a few things I want to talk to them about, but I may wait and save some of that for the end of the day and do my normal opening stuff. We'll just kind of see how I go with it.
The judge will give notepads. Notepads.
Yeah, they'll get the notepads while I'm doing the instructions. All right, go ahead and bring them in. What number? There's a piece of tape with a number on that microphone. It's 2. Okay. It's my handwriting, so probably I'm the one that can decipher it. Yeah, it's 1. Okay. All right. So we're not going to be using the second one probably, so it may not matter. But during the other trial, I had the other one muted. All right. Your first inside information about court is y'all do not have to remain standing. Everyone else is standing in deference to you because ultimately they want you to decide the case in their favor. And so y'all, it's going to be tight. They're going to give you instructions on how to do the chairs. Pull that other one back. And they're going to move that camera after opening statements, so it'll be a little bit easier after we get started. All right, ladies and gentlemen, it is 1:05. In the last 11 years and 9 months, this is probably the soonest after I have given a start time that we have actually started. And this may be the best we do going forward, depending on how this case goes. But it'll be my goal to do my best to efficiently utilize your time. That is my first priority, is to give Ms. Farris a fair trial. My second priority is to use your time as best that we can when y'all are here, since y'all are giving up 3 to 4 weeks of your time. So our goal is to start. I've talked with the attorneys. I'm kind of just giving you some rambling stuff to start with, but we're going to start as close. I want y'all here at 8:45 every day. We're going to start as close to 9 o'clock as we can, and we'll go till 5:15, 5:30, depending on where we are with the witness. We're not going to get in a hurry if it's going to take 3 to 4 weeks. We're also not going to drag it out so that it goes past 3 to 4 weeks. And I'll talk to you some more about that as we go. All right, ladies and gentlemen. As we get started, I'm going to go over some basic principles of criminal law. I'm also going to explain your role, my role, and the attorney's roles as it comes to a trial. Finally, I'll tell you how a trial will proceed. Many of you may not have served on a trial as a juror before, so this will help your understanding as to what the trial process works and what will be expected of you. You've been selected and sworn to try the criminal case of the state of Georgia versus Melody Walker Farris. The Cherokee County Grand Jury has indicted the defendant. I read the indictment to you last week. The lawyers may refer to the indictment during their opening statements. I'm just going to go over what the charges are. Count 1 is malice murder. Count 2 is felony murder. Count 3 is aggravated assault. Count 4 is concealing the death of another. And count 5 is making a false statement. The defendant has pled not guilty to this indictment, and she denies every charge in it. The indictment and the defendant's plea of not guilty present the issues that you have been selected and sworn to decide. I do need to swear them in, so I'll do that in a second. The indictment is the way in which the defendant is charged with committing crimes that violate the laws of Georgia. The charges in the indictment and the plea of not guilty are not evidence of guilt. You may not conclude that the defendant is guilty based upon the charges or the not guilty plea. The defendant is presumed to be innocent until she is proven guilty. A defendant begins a trial with a presumption of innocence in her favor, and this presumption stays with her until it is overcome by the state with evidence that convinces you beyond a reasonable doubt that the defendant is guilty of the crimes charged. You may not convict the defendant of any crime unless each element of the crime is proven beyond a reasonable doubt. The burden of proof is on the state to prove every essential element of the crime charged in the indictment beyond a reasonable doubt. The defendant has no burden of proof at all, and the burden never shifts to a defendant to prove her innocence. However, the state is not required to prove the guilt of the defendant beyond all doubt or to a mathematical certainty. A reasonable doubt means just what it says. It is a doubt of a fair-minded, impartial juror who is honestly seeking the truth. It is a doubt based upon common sense and reason. It does not mean a vague or arbitrary doubt, but it is a doubt for which you can give a reason based upon a consideration of the evidence or lack of evidence or conflict in the evidence or any combination of these. After considering all the facts and circumstances of this case, if your minds are wavering, unsettled, or unsatisfied, then that is a doubt of the law, and you must find the defendant not guilty. But if no reasonable doubt exists in your mind about a defendant's guilt, then you may convict the defendant. If the state does not prove the defendant's guilt beyond a reasonable doubt, your duty would be to find the defendant not guilty. My role as judge is to determine the law that applies to this case. Then I will instruct you on that law that you must apply to the facts in reaching a verdict. I'm giving you some of those instructions now. I will give you more detailed instructions at the end of the trial. The jury has a very important role. You must decide the facts of the case from the evidence presented, and then apply the law that I will give you in the closing charge to those facts. Evidence is how a fact is proved or disproved. Evidence can either be testimony or exhibits. Testimony is what you'll hear from people who will take the witness stand and swear to tell the truth. The questions the lawyers ask you, the questions the lawyers ask the witnesses are not evidence. Exhibits are the documents, photographs, and other physical items that are admitted during the trial. The object of a trial is to discover the truth. During the course of a trial, I will admit evidence according to the rules of evidence. Those rules are designed to aid in discovering the truth by making sure you consider only the best and highest evidence. The lawyers, of course, are advocates for their clients, and they have a duty to represent their clients to the best of their ability. They must follow the rules of law, trial procedure, and evidence during the course of a trial. They may make motions or objections if they believe any rule is not being followed. Again, what the lawyers say when making or responding to objections is also not evidence. I will admit or exclude evidence according to the rules. If any lawyer makes an objection and I overrule it, that means evidence is admitted and you may consider it. On the other hand, if an objection is made and I sustain it, this means the evidence is excluded and you may not consider it. You should consider only the testimony and only those exhibits that are admitted. You should not assume or infer anything about evidence that has been excluded. If you happen to hear or see any evidence that is excluded, I will instruct you to disregard it in its entirety during your deliberations and in arriving at your verdict. None of my decisions and nothing I say during the course of the trial or evidence. My decisions and remarks do not mean that I favor or lean to one side or another in this case. I'm only interested in seeing that this case is tried fairly based on the laws and Constitution of the state of Georgia and the Constitution of the United States. Sometimes I may need to deal with lawyers' motions or objections without you being here in the courtroom. If that's the case, I'll excuse you to the jury room. We may occasionally take a sidebar over here in front of the clerk. If we do that, we're doing that so that we don't have to send you back and forth to the jury room frequently. Typically, that's going to be on something rather mundane and not really important to the course of the trial. Usually it's going to be something along the, what's your next witness look like? How long are they going to be? Is this a good time to break? That sort of thing. We will try to limit those interruptions. Please be patient when we do that. That will also probably happen more frequently when we take a break. It's not uncommon for us to take a 10-minute recess and it turn into a 20-minute or 30-minute break. That's because the lawyers will come up with an issue that needs to be addressed outside your presence, and it's easier for us to do that on a break. If I think it's going to be extended, I'll send word out to the bailiff to give y'all some idea of how long you're going to be sitting there. That also may happen during the lunch break. If you will notice, I will say we're going to shoot for 10 minutes, okay, when we take a break. But things come up as we proceed. Also, we have new courtroom AV equipment that's been installed in the last year. No one talked to me before they installed it, and I don't like particularly the way it works. We have modified it and tweaked it even more 2 weeks ago before my last trial that we just finished up before y'all were selected. We have tweaked it even more since y'all are here, and now we have parts of it being plugged into by the folks operating the cameras. We also have them to deal with. So things may happen relating to the technology that interrupt the course of the trial. While I'm talking about the technology, the media is not going to film you. In fact, I was here till 6:45 Friday evening to make sure that y'all were not in the sight lines of any of the cameras. Tracy, my judicial assistant, and my staff attorney helped us, and we sat in each one of the locations and got where the lawyers typically get and, you know, did all that to make sure y'all weren't in the sight lines. So they've assured me that they will keep y'all off camera. Back to the AV equipment. It is prone to act differently every day. Just like we have the folks that are recording this, they have cameras. You would think they could just set them up and leave them here. The example I typically give is the commissioners meeting. They stream the commissioners meeting out every month whenever they have those. They have people on site to make sure that the information that's being presented to the commissioners and streamed to the public is given to the people who need the information. They have someone there in case there's a problem with it. We do not have anyone in here in this building that is in control of the AV equipment for the 10 courtrooms that we have equipped with the equipment. And it acts different every time we use it. Now, I put together the old system and I am comfortable with the new system. And when it doesn't work, I'm going to hop down and get it to work. And if I can't get it to work, I have a 50-foot HDMI cable that I will string up to the monitor so that y'all can see the evidence. And I don't care whether the folks on the internet can see it or not. They can just zoom in on the camera on the TV. If I do that, I'm not trying to help Mr. Fogus and Mr. Frankish if it's their presentation of evidence that's going on. If that happens while Mr. Weaver and Mr. Ray are doing something, I'm not trying to help them. I'm just trying to give you the information y'all need as efficiently as possible to get this case moving forward. There is going to be lots of evidence in this case. Most of the evidence is in a digital format. The best way to show you the digital format is directly through the system to the screen so y'all can see the digital content. Unfortunately, now there is so much digital content, we have to do this in every case, and I'll talk to you some more about that at the end of the trial. But if I can't get it to work, then we will take a longer recess and I'll send you out to the to the jury room, but usually I can get it pretty quick and I can help the lawyers figure out what's going on with their system. That is a common occurrence. All right, trial process will be as follows. First, the attorneys will give what's called an opening statement. No attorney is required to make an opening statement. Opening statements are not evidence. They are simply an introduction to the evidence, a preview, or an outline of what each side anticipates the evidence will be. The state goes first because they have the burden of proof. After that, witnesses will be called to the stand and the evidence will be presented. After the evidence is concluded, the attorneys will give what's called a closing argument or summation. They may discuss the law that applies to the case and how you consider the law in light of the evidence. They also will point out parts of the evidence they believe supports their position. Again, what the lawyers say in their closing arguments is not evidence. It is up to you as the jury to determine what the evidence in the case is. The goal of a closing argument, of course, is to get you to persuade you to try to decide the case in their favor. After that, I will explain to you the specific law that applies to this case. That will be the jury instruction, or as I refer to it as a jury charge. I'll then ask you at that point to go to the jury room to deliberate and reach a verdict. It is important that you pay close attention during the trial. If at any time you cannot hear or see evidence, I know our angles are tough. We have 2 screens. Hopefully you can see it. If you're having a problem, you let me know and we'll try to figure out a better way to do it. I think we have that screen turned as much as we can. The one that I had installed previously that was over there had an arm and could slide out a little bit better. But if at any time you cannot hear evidence, let us know. If you're suffering from discomfort or need a break, let us know. Y'all stand up and stretch if you need to. If someone needs to has a condition where they need to have snacks, you can bring a snack in here. Bring your coffee, bring a bottle of water, whatever you need. We'll have bottles of water for you if you need them. We'll have coffee available. I'm going to be drinking lots of coffee up here. Bring in your own cup if you want to. The security folks prefer that it be plastic or paper. If you bring in a ceramic or metal one after 4 weeks of trial, y'all might use them against each other. So we want you to be safe. But you're free to bring that in. If anybody wants, I'll go ahead and talk to you about lunch a little bit while I'm thinking about it. All right. We'll probably bring in lunch for you some of the days. Right now, I'm thinking about doing that Monday, Wednesday, Friday. If we do that, we'll have a menu for you. We may not do it every day because you just may want to get out of this building from time to time. So that's kind of my thought. We'll talk to y'all about that more as the week progresses. If we do lunch inside and bring it for you, then we'll probably take closer to an hour lunch break. If we let y'all go off on your own, I usually tell y'all an hour and 15 minutes to get back, and then we try to be up and running in an hour and a half. But 30 minutes a day for a week is half a day. So we can gain half a day by staying in every day. But again, I want to get some input from y'all about that. So I'll talk to y'all later in the week about how you want to do that. We probably won't do that tomorrow. We'll typically take a mid-morning recess for 10 to 15 minutes. Same thing in the afternoon. We'll take a 10 to 15-minute break. We have 4 alternates. Y'all don't know who the alternates are right now, and I'm not going to tell you who the alternates are right now. Right now, you're all on the case, and you're on the case for the next 3 to 4 weeks. When we take breaks, if Judge Baker does not have a jury out, we're also going to utilize his jury room. So there are 2 rooms back here on the hallway. So that way, when we take a break, there'll be 4 bathrooms available, and it won't take as long as well. When y'all come and go for short breaks, and y'all go to the jury room, y'all can just leave your notepads and we'll give you in a few minutes in your chairs. Y'all can leave anything else you want in the courtroom on your seats, your sweaters, lap blankets, ski parkas, whatever. Those of you on the back row are going to have that air blowing on you constantly and you're going to be cold. I'm burning up already. I know y'all find that hard to believe, but it's the case. I have a fan right here blowing on me right now. There are no vents up here. It's 3 feet above where y'all are, so it's warmer up here naturally. There's no airflow. And I also have multiple devices and computers and screens and stuff up here. And so it's about 10 degrees warmer up here than it is down there. And I want the courtroom to be the temperature of Rocky's meat locker. All right. Again, if you need anything, you let us know. We'll try to help you. If the media needs something, I will try to accommodate them as best they can. But I'm not going to let that get in the way of us trying the case. All right, you should consider the evidence with an open mind. You should not reach any final conclusions until the trial is over. Do not jump to conclusions before all the evidence is presented. All right, this is critically important. To maintain the integrity of the jury system, I remind you that you must decide this case based only upon the evidence admitted during the course of the trial and the law that I explained to you. You may not conduct any research on your own about this case or about any people, places, or events mentioned during the course of the trial. You may not visit any places mentioned in the evidence. You may not refer to any books or documents that were not admitted during the trial. You may not use dictionaries or other reference materials. You may not use Google or otherwise search the internet, websites, or blogs. You may not conduct any research nor use any electronic media to get information about this case. You should not use any of these sources to get information about legal terms or the law. Finally, you may not read or listen to any accounts of this trial that might appear in the news media, whether online, in print, or on the radio. I've already told you all about that a little bit when we were downstairs last week. Do not look up anything about this case. Do not talk to anyone about this case. If you've told people that you're having jury duty, after a few weeks and they know that you're still, or after the end of this week and they know you're still on jury duty next week, it's going to be real easy for them to figure out what case you're on if they're paying attention. I anticipate this case will have more media coverage than any other case that we've tried up here in a long time. I expect the folks that are covering this case will increase, and there'll be more coverage of it as the case goes on. If you watch the 6 o'clock news or 11 o'clock news every night, and that's your normal habit and routine, I'm not going to tell you you can't do that. But when something comes on about this case, turn it off, turn off the channel. Let us know to the extent what you saw and observed. I did have a trial several years ago. That was a murder case, and someone walked into a local restaurant and they were broadcasting the story in the lobby on the television because they had the 6 o'clock news on. If something like that happens to you, let us know. Remove yourself from the situation immediately. Let us know immediately the next morning. Let the bailiff know that there was something that happened. We'll probably want to bring you in here separately. Let the lawyers ask you some questions about it. Probably won't be any problem, but just be careful. Likewise, if anybody figures out you're on the jury and wants to talk to you about it, first thing you tell them is, I can't talk to you about anything. All right. I don't know what I told you about social media last week. I think I said something along the lines about being careful about posting being on the jury. Again, I'm not trying to prohibit you from doing what you want to do. I'm more concerned about if you post something about being on jury duty, that someone's going to start asking you questions about what kind of case, what case is it, who the judge is, who the lawyers are, and it's the back and forth that's going to be the bigger problem. I know that this is going to be an intrusion on your lives, and I am very cognizant of that. And I'm going to do everything I can to move this case as efficiently as possible so that the intrusion to your lives is minimized. But it's important and critical that y'all remain fair, neutral, impartial, and only get information about this case from what the lawyers present to you with my supervision. We've had reports of folks doing blogs while they're on the jury and talking to them about what they're seeing and observing in cases, which is just crazy to me. But that's what's been happening. Remember, you're the ones that are fair and impartial jurors deciding this case. No other influences should affect your decision. For that reason, you may not discuss this case with anyone, including family and friends. nor let anyone discuss the case with you or around you. This includes discussing or sharing information by email, texting, blogging, or any form of social media. Until actual deliberations begin, that is, until you've heard all the evidence, the closing arguments, I've given you the jury instructions, and all the evidence is with you, and there are only 12 of you. That's the only time y'all can discuss, and all 12 of you are in the jury room. That is the only time you can talk about the case. So you can't talk about the case at the end of the day, during breaks, with each other, or anything. Y'all can't talk about the witnesses or the lawyers or anything. All right? Everybody understand that? All right, y'all can go ahead and give them pads and pencils. We're going to give y'all pads and pencils to use during the trial. I told y'all not to bring your own. During the course of the trial, you may take notes if you choose to. You're not required to. If you do take notes, do not let your note-taking distract you from paying full attention to the evidence and the witnesses. Your observations of the witnesses while they are testifying is critical in you determining their credibility. You may not share or discuss your notes with anyone until the deliberations begin. Notes are not evidence. They are only memory aids. They are not any more important than your own impression or memory of what the evidence may have been. While you may consider another juror's notes to refresh your memory, you should rely only on your own memory of the proceedings. Don't be influenced by the notes of other jurors unless their notes help you in determining your own independent memory. If you need another notepad, which I expect y'all may, based upon the length of the trial, just let the bailiff know. Put your juror numbers on the top, or your name, or some other way to identify it. If you go to a second pad, put 1 of 2 on the top. Again, during breaks, you'll just leave your notepads. Probably don't want you to leave them in here because we may have the court staff will be in here at any time that there are other people present in the room, but I may have y'all take them into the jury room at the end of the day instead of leaving them in the courtroom at the end of the day. But during the breaks, y'all can just leave them on the on your chairs. I know you're going to get claustrophobia over there because I sat in that chair the other day. Just, if it gets to be real bad, ask if someone can swap out with you. Y'all don't have to sit in the same chairs. You're going to. Everybody always does. But y'all don't have to. Y'all aren't locked into that chair unless you want to be. Y'all can switch out if you want. We talked about maybe putting that chair around the other corner on the other side of that rail. We can do that if you just say this is too much and I can't handle it. So again, I want you to be as comfortable as possible. We were afraid we might have to put a camera in that corner next to you, so that's why we didn't do that. Your notes will be collected and destroyed at the end of the deliberations. There will probably be, throughout the course of the trial, some reference to things that y'all have seen on TV and movies that cover trials. No one ever covers this part in a adaptation of a trial. No one talks about the instructions from the judge. You never see that anywhere. One of the things that always happens in a movie or TV is there's some dramatic moment and the lawyer says, Mr. Court Reporter, please recite back the evidence or the testimony of the prior witness, blah, blah, blah. We don't have that capability, okay? Shane is taking down the trial. He's speaking into a mask. Everything that's being said in the trial is also being recorded on a multi-track recording. So every microphone has its own independent feed into his system. He is repeating back what is being said as it's being said so that he can verify what was being said. There's no way for him to repeat that back to you, and then no one would be able to repeat what he's saying while he's reading it back to you. So that's not going to happen. There'll be other things that the lawyers will probably refer to that you're used to seeing in a trial. That's not going to happen in this case. Let's see. While I'm thinking about it, I'll probably refer some of this to you again later, but we're going to have parking for y'all the rest of the week. So there'll be a designated parking space when y'all get here. That should open up about 15 minutes before I tell you to be here. If you're super type A and you're going to be here 30 minutes before I tell you to be here, you're going to be too early, and there's not going to be anyone down there to get the parking for you. But we're going to have a area either roped off with tape or with pylons, and there'll be a bailiff or court security will be there, and you'll come up and tell them you're a jury, and they'll move the cone out of the way, and you can pull in the space. But we're going to do that for you for the week, so we don't have to worry about y'all having a parking space on Wednesday when it's state court arraignment and there are 500 cars out there. All right. With all that, state ready to proceed with opening statements? Yes, thank you.
Bailiff's also your honor, or?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and do the bailiffs. That's what I usually do. Let me find my... Of course, I can't find it. What I want. Nothing works when you're being observed, just as a general course of... All right, ladies and gentlemen, if you'll stand up. All right, raise your right hands. You shall well and truly try the issues formed upon this bill of indictment of the state of Georgia versus Melody Walker Farris, and a true verdict give according to the evidence, so help you God. Say, I do or I will. All right, y'all can be seated. All right, if my bailiffs will come up. All right, this is something that I've been doing for almost every trial that I give. We swear our bailiffs in for the term. A term in Cherokee County is 4 months, but I swear them in for a particular trial every time, just because it lets y'all know that just as y'all have taken an oath and the attorneys have taken oaths to practice law as officers of the court, the bailiffs also take an oath. It also has some really nice archaic language that talks about how we can abuse you as jurors that I find interesting. All right, raise your right hands. You shall take all juries committed to your charge to the jury room or some other private or convenient place designated by the court, and you shall not allow the jurors to receive any books, papers, nourishment, or hydration other than water, or use any electronic communication device except as directed and approved by the court. You shall make no communication with the jurors, nor permit anyone to communicate with the jurors except as specifically authorized by the court. You shall discharge all other duties which may devolve upon you as bailiff to the best of your skill and power, so help you God. All right, thank you. All right, now, if you notice, there's that language I was talking about, but everything says except as approved or directed by the court. So I will allow y'all to bring in coffee or Powerade or whatever you need to get through the trial within reason. And I will give them direction on how to handle y'all now. It's also, I know as we talked about, y'all having a sweater or jacket or whatever, make sure you have your juror badges on. It's my plan for y'all not to go anywhere without supervision of the bailiffs just because of the nature of the case. So if a group of y'all want to go down and get coffee, a bailiff's going to escort y'all down there. Do I have any smokers? Okay, so about how often do you need a break? Can you get by with one in the afternoon? Okay, all right, so what we'll probably do is when if someone needs to go get coffee, we'll have bailiff escort you to one of the entrances where you can, to the designated smoking areas. We might try to grab another bailiff to babysit you while you're out there, okay? All right. All right, anything else we need to take up before opening statements? All right, if you need to plug in your laptop, go ahead. You're already set up. You're good. Okay, all right, you can proceed.
Please support, counsel. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, when we're doing jury selection, I talked to you about being legal investigators. The object of all legal investigation is the discovery of truth. That's why you're here. The question is really, why are you here? I want to put you at ease through this trial. It's going to be a long trial. It will be a slow burn. There's a lot of evidence in this case. But why is the media here? Look around. Why are these people here? Why are the attorneys here? Why is the defendant here? Gary Farris will not walk through that door. No problem, Judge. Gary will not walk through that door. In this trial, what you have to do is ask yourself, what is the truth? You have to ask yourself certain questions. You do not have to ask yourself, was Gary murdered? He was. The evidence is going to show that. You do not have to ask yourself, was Gary Farris burned on a burn pile? He was. The question you have to ask is, who did this? Who did it? This is a murder. This is a heinous murder. He was shot, killed, put on a burn pile, and burned. The question you have to ask, what the evidence demands an answer of, is who murdered Gary? Now, these people that are here to see the trial, what I want you to do is they're going to follow the evidence too. I want you to look at me. Don't worry about that. Follow the evidence. The evidence demands an answer, and the answer is close. It's at hand. It's close to me. It's close to you. It was close to Gary. When the object of all legal investigation is the discovery of truth. At this trial, what you have to do is you have to shrink the world. When you see the evidence, this is Cherokee County. They don't have a lot of murders. They definitely don't have a lot of murders when someone's shot and put on burn pile. You shrink the world. And when you shrink the world, you're going to come to one conclusion and one answer of who. Not what happened, not how it happened, but who did it. And she's near. Frankie, I can get this technology to work, and Megan's going to help me here. I want to move. I'll talk loudly so everybody can hear me, but what I want to do is, as we go through this, be comfortable, be at peace as you go through this evidence. Relax and listen to what there is. I know there's a lot going on, but you are the most important people in this matter. It does not matter what I say. It does not matter what the defense says. It matters what does the evidence say? What does it speak? Let me introduce you to the Farris family. You'll see in front of you there's the family line, the lineage. You'll see on the screen here there's a photograph. You see Gary. Thank you. You see Gary is in this picture, and this is a happy time. This is Emily, the bride in the middle, a daughter. This was a wedding, I think, about 2 years before the murder, 2016. See Gary, he's in this picture. He's standing there with his wife, the defendant. Now, there are 4 children. And as you go through this, you're going to probably take notes because you hear the same names over and over again. You're going to hear about the Farris. You're going to hear about the Farris will. Unfortunately for this family is they have drama. They are not a perfect family. My family is imperfect. Everybody's family is. They didn't ask for their life experiences and the good and the bad and ugly to come in, but that's what the evidence is going to show. And I have to present it. I have great sympathy, everybody does, for families like this. But the evidence is going to show what was going on in their family. It's going to be the good, the bad, and ugly, just like anything else. Most families, however, don't consist of murder. Now, in this family, you're going to see Chris. On the right side of the screen, you see Gary and Melody. To the right, as we look at, is Chris. He's the oldest, probably about 37. On the other side is Scott. Scott's about 35. Chris was living, in many ways, his own life. He was married, had his own kids. You hear about the kids. They're going to be here. You're going to hear about Ella and Addison, the grandkids. Scott was in the military over Iraq. He came back for a while, lived on the property, worked the property, had kind of an agreement with his dad that he would work the land and he would get paid. Didn't have a job really after he came back, and then he ended up with the family. But that was his agreement with his dad. Gary was a very generous man, loved his family. So you had the 2 guys, the 2 sons, Chris and Scott, then you had the 2 girls, Emily in the middle, and Amanda beside her. Amanda was the youngest, the baby, if you would. They were probably around 30, 28, around those age. Gary and Melody got married at a young age. I think it was around 20. 38 years, almost 39. They were married for a long time. They were together, Alabama, small family. Gary worked hard. You're going to learn a lot about Gary. You're going to learn a lot about Melody. And what you're going to learn is the evidence is going to show that they're both, I dare say, brilliant. He practiced law, corporate law. He went to the University of Alabama. I think he graduated first in his class. Extremely smart, introverted. The defendant, she liked the life of being married to a rich lawyer. Gary did so well when he was in Alabama. The firm he worked for, corporate law, real estate law, things like that, very successful. They sent him to the Atlanta area here to open up an office for the firm. Did very good. Very smart, worked his way up. I think he ended up being a senior partner. Very smart, loved his job. One thing with lawyers, the longer they do it, the longer they get better at it, the more they get better at it, and they stay at it. But sometimes what they do is they don't interact with, because they interact with people all day long. Oftentimes when they get home, they get close, they get small. And Gary was like that. In their wedding, their marriage, they had some issues that we're going to talk about. And it looks like they were happy here. This is about 2016, but there was a lot going on behind the scenes. Gary, you could set the clock to his routine, his habits. He's one of those guys. The question you got to answer in this trial is not was he murdered, not how was he murdered, but who did it. The evidence demands the answer that he was murdered. He was shot and killed, put on a burn pile. This burn pile behind his house. His remains were found. Not much. Gary was a big guy, about 6'4", 300 pounds, give or take. About 33 pounds remained. When you shrink the world, no robbery, no home invasions, no enemies, no road rage, nothing like that. When you shrink the world, in a case like this, husband and wife, wife kills husband, husband dies. The answer to the question, who did it, sits right there. Melody Walker Farris. Let me talk to you about their property. They were affluent. When I grew up in South Carolina, we'd say they're rich. They were rich. He made a lot of money. He would make probably hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. Sometimes his paychecks, even after you take all the taxes out, $20,000. They'd have profit sharing and things like that. He made a lot of money. This property that they lived on in Purcell, 2511 Purcell Lane, Cherokee County, it's a hobby farm. If you see, there's actually a road coming down Purcell Lane, and you see that white area, that's dirt. They had horses. If you go up the driveway that's along the trees at the bottom, and then there's a driveway in the middle of this photograph, that's to the barn where Scott stayed. Now, the family had trouble. Chris had some issues with drinking. He got in an argument with his mom about a year for this. She says that he said something along the lines that Chris was going to beat her to a pulp, put her in a pine box or something along those lines. That's what she says. No, he says. But they had a problem. Scott got back from the military, was living there, getting money from his dad. Emily was married. She had a husband Melody didn't like. He got in some financial troubles, some legal troubles, criminal troubles. Amanda was young. And they all took money from their dad. Not in the bad sense. He had money. He was willing to do with it. I didn't give him a hard time. When you going to get a job? When you going to pay this back? Those type of things. But he could afford it. House, I believe, is worth the property more than $1 million. Now, when you go through your notes and think about this, we know this case, and sometimes we have to slow down because you don't know the places where this occurred. And the murder occurred in this house. The shooting occurred in the house, in the kitchen, down to the basement. Now, as you look at this house, it's kind of unique in the sense that it's 2 or 3 car garage right here. But as you look at this photograph, you'll see the front. Go to where that pine tree is, go right behind that pine tree, that's the front. This is looking, if you were kind of looking, if the pond was behind you, you're looking up at what I would call the front, but it's not, it's really the side. I think it's kind of like the east side. But it's got a deck there, and it's a circular deck. And under that deck was where Gary stayed. The basement or the ground level was Gary's domain. That house was the defendant's. She had everything she wanted. It's immaculate. She liked to live the lifestyle. Furs, coats, jewelry, nice paintings, nice furniture, things like that. That was her domain. She was a go-getter. She was tough. She got after it. She cleaned, almost OCD to the point that she cleaned. Her house was beautiful. Gary lived in the bottom. He had a bedroom down there. He had a CPAP. He slept with that CPAP every night. We're going to talk about that. But he stayed down in the bottom. If you kind of walk out, you see where that, it starts on the right side. There's an oval where it juts out. Below that is 2 doors. You'll hear me talk about it. You probably hear me chuckle at some point. There's doors that slide open like this to where he would have his couch and his TV and things like that. I call them American doors because right to the right are French doors. Just how I remember. And you could walk out that American doors, and when you come out there, if you turn left, that's where the burn pile is. This is over by the barn looking back towards the house. They had horses. This is nice property. This is the barn. This is where Scott stayed. Scott stayed on the top, basically being an employee of his dad. Scott wanted the property, loved the property, liked the property, loved the horses. He was invested in it. He was thinking to move on one day and get another job, but he was locked in this property. And he and his mom worked. They may bicker and things like that, but they worked the property. They did a lot of work. And he lived in that barn there on the top. This is back to the house, transitioning back to the house. If you walk in that front door, this is what you see. Now, as you walk in, you're going to see evidence. If you walk in that front door, and I'm staring at the steps, if I'm staring at the steps and I turn right, you're going to go to what I call the kitchen table. You you turn left, there's a bathroom. If you go straight, you're going to go down a hallway to the master bedroom. This is the master bedroom. That door right there, you can walk out and go to the balcony. And that's where that oval porch was. You can stand out over that and look. You can look at the pond. Study room, library, very nice. Very affluent. This is the dining area, looking out towards the pond, nice. This is the kitchen. This is the doorway from the kitchen to the basement. You go down the basement. To the left here, if you look at the picture, there's that light switch and whatnot, then there's that cabinet. Right around the corner is the steps you come down. It's 12 steps down, a landing, 4 steps down. You come down that landing, you stand right there. If you're standing off the steps, you get off the steps, you look straight forward, you're going to look at that bar. Just looking back from the, kind of to the side of the American doors, looking back towards the bar. As you look at this picture, to the right is a hallway. You go down that hallway was Gary's office, where he'd hang out and do stuff, work. He liked to get up in the morning. Because he was a partner, because he'd been doing it so long, because he had those routines, he would get up and go check email. To say that Gary Farris was a workaholic is an understatement. The man's like a lot of attorneys. Check the emails at night, vacation, it doesn't matter. He's working, he's checking the email, he's busy. He has such patterns and routines you can set your clock by. So as you look here, you go to right to his office. To the left, if you go to the left, there's a hallway that goes to his bedroom. Now, you may want to write these dates down. In July of 2018, we're going to focus on 3 main dates. July 3rd, July 4th, and July 5th. You're going to hear us talk about Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Y'all, when I do trials, I am not perfect. I'll mess up names and dates and times. But this is what we're talking about. I'll catch myself and say, I didn't mean 2020, I meant 2018. What we want to do, again, this trial is not about being perfect. It's about the truth, to be authentic. When we did jury selection, you heard me say to be authentic. These are the dates we're going to focus on. July 3rd, 4th, and 5th. And I just want to kind of give an overview of some of the evidence. This is not all the evidence. You're going to hear a lot of evidence, including evidence that we're not going to present. But this is Tuesday, July 3rd. We don't know exactly when Gary was killed, and we don't have to prove that. The evidence does not require us to prove you the exact time that Gary was shot and killed. But we have a very good idea. Tuesday night around 10 p.m. most likely. Last time he used that CPAP was Tuesday morning. A little after midnight, he got on it. He got up that morning and turned it off. And that machine, when they did a search warrant, shows the times. He's not going to bed without that CPAP. He never used it again. We have no reading that was used again. Now, on Tuesday around lunchtime, Gary had an interesting relationship with his family. And they had some good times, but it was also different. I don't know about y'all, if I go in a restaurant and I see a friend or a family, I'm going to go up and say, hey, Tom, we're going to hang out, we're going to do stuff. Especially this is my dad. Well, on Tuesday, Scott and the defendant were working, and they decided to go to lunch. They went to Cherokee Ranch restaurant, a local restaurant. While they were there, Gary was already there. He pays his bill, and he leaves, and doesn't say a word to him. And that's not uncommon, because their relationship is not a touchy-feely type of relationship in this family. That's not this family. They communicate a lot by text messages, emails, instead of just calling and talking. That afternoon, Scott went to a lake house. He was there that afternoon and evening. There's a text asking about sleeping over for Aston, which is Chris's daughter, the grandchild. There's a text from her, from the defendant, saying, what about tomorrow night, not tonight? And that was going to show that the defendant loved her grandchildren. If they were close or she could get to them, she would get to them. Not this night. There was a visit Big Daddy and Grandma. That's what they call Gary, Melody. Big Daddy, Grandma. Chris and Addison came over that night. Gary was getting the burn pile ready to go. He liked to burn things. He liked to do it. They were there talking to him, see what he's doing, and they left that night because couldn't stay, and so they went back. About 10:52 p.m., there's a phone call between the defendant and Scott, and it was basically the defendant saying the horses are out, when you coming home? And Scott's with his friends. He's down at the lake or whatnot. She's calling, when you coming home? The horses are out. He gets home, Scott does, about 11:30. Sees the burn pile's burning. I think it says something along, I see Dad burn the burn pile, or he's burning the burn pile, or something like that. Wednesday morning, Scott gets a debit card from his mom because he's going to go play golf. He has this thing on 4th of July that he would play golf, he and his buddies. You're going to hear about his buddies, Philip and Ted. That's just what he did. So about 6:15, I think he goes to the door. I think he calls or texts his mom, the defendant, says, needs a card. She comes out, gives him the card. He goes to the ATM real quickly, right down the road, gets some money, and comes back to go play golf. He's playing golf with his friends, Chris and family. They go to the Peachtree Road Race. Chris and Addison, they then go to the Cracker Barrel, I believe, that morning. Scott goes to the lake on a pool party. He's there in the afternoon and evening. The defendant actually leaves from Lake Lanier to go be with Amanda, Chad Bruce. You're going to see things here. You're going to see it's kind of this way. Chad Bruce was the fiance, now husband to Amanda. Amanda Bruce was Amanda Farris. And they go there and hang out, and you're going to hear about that. And at some point, they come back from the lake. Chris drops Addison off at the house on Wednesday night because they want to see and hang out. Now, these times, they change. I may get them wrong, but you're going to hear the times as we go through. Wednesday night, July 4th, kids around 11 or 12. They come in, they live out of state, they come in, they want to see everybody, they want to see Big Daddy, they want to ride some of the stuff on the property, they want to do things. It's 4th of July, and the defendant wants the kids to go to bed early. July 4th, 3rd, Tuesday, 4th, Wednesday, 5th, Thursday. Defendant goes to Walmart, checks out around 9:30. Scott spoke with the defendant and Amanda about 11 o'clock that morning. Now she goes and gets some supplies and some things at Walmart. So here's 5th is where it breaks open. Scott has got a connection or connect for some golf clubs. He's going to go to the PGA and get some golf clubs. He sees Amanda up at the house, and so he's driving down his driveway from the barn to leave. He sees Amanda, so he goes up and starts talking to him. And defendant is asking, have you seen your dad? And it's got to be sarcastic. And he can be hard on his mom. He talks to her. They kind of go back, he says some things, kind of sarcastically. We talk about where's dad, things like that. And they start looking for him. Now, the defendant starts asking people, are you on the bank accounts or something like that? As in, maybe he's using the funds or the accounts to try to find where he's at. But his Mercedes is at the house. And they moved. Now, they would say Gary would kind of go away sometimes and just kind of disappear. Now, he was last seen on Tuesday night by someone other than the defendant. So Wednesday, Thursday. Now they're just starting asking, where's he at? They go around the property. At some point, the defendant's behind the burn pile, and she points out to Scott, gets his attention, brings him up there. Something about goats. Did you burn goats? Scott gets to that burn pile. He was in the military. He's proud he was in the military. He tries to take a leadership role when things break bad, and he finds his own father's remains. He calls 911. You're going to hear it. During this time that's going on, a couple of weeks before this, while the cable guy or something was over at the house, Scott saw a .38 pistol. It was in a leather holster of some sort. and he thinks something's afoot. Foul play, something's not right. He's suspicious of his mom. You're going to hear how he is. And he starts talking about this missing gun. And people are like, what gun? What are you talking about? He starts talking about this missing gun that was downstairs in the basement. 38. Nobody knows anything about 38 or anything like that. Scott has a suspicion that something's up. He actually says a statement to the effect of, did my mom finally do something? When he talks to a friend. Now, the defense is going to point at Scott or other people. But the evidence is going to show it's Melody. No one else. It's her. And what you have to do is follow the evidence. And what does the evidence say? What does it speak? What is the truth? It's not Scott. Law enforcement gets there, they start talking to people, and when they get there, what you're going to see is they get a call to someone in need, emergency services. So they bring the big long back thing you carry people on like a stretcher. They bring all this defibrillator, things like that. They get there, they don't know, they think they're going to find a person back there who had a heart attack or stroke or heat exhaustion or something and pass out. And they get back there and they find nothing but remains. Law enforcement still doesn't really know what's going on in the beginning. They think it was just an emergency. They don't think anything about crime. They start talking to people, and then they realize the conditions of the remains had to burn for a long time. The CSI people at the sheriff's office, they're like, all right, we have to call in an expert, forensic anthropologist, Dr. Gooden, comes in, and you're going to see what she does. They interview the defendant, they interview Scott, they ask him what's going on. And in the beginning, the defendant, she starts right off the bat talking about, well, Gary had these medical conditions. And then she says his family's got some mental issues, maybe suicidal. She starts laying that foundation of these other things. Any enemies? No. Would the kids do this? No. Anything else? No. Anything missing? No, 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 no. She's laying the foundation. These are the pictures when law enforcement gets there. Dr. Gooding gets involved. They start marking it. And then things change. When they get the remains of Gary, we're stipulated that these remains are Gary. He's actually identified dental records. He's burned up so bad. When they get there, they find in his rib a 38, they think it's a 380 in the beginning, but it's a 38 special bullet projectile. It's in his left ribs. It's front to back, anterior to posterior. It's in his ribs. So now they think he's medical condition, but he's burned up too bad. Then when they're doing it, that's a bullet. Changes everything. There's no gun. We do not know where the gun is. We look for the gun. The missing gun is evidence of consciousness of guilt. Because if it was a suicide, gun would be right there. If it's murder, you can't get rid of the evidence. Burn the body, get rid of the gun. Things change now. It's a homicide investigation. Now, this family had problems. And they had disagreements. You're going to hear about dishes being broken. There's several instances of dishes being broken. One time, when she's talking about dishes, you're going to hear the defendant talking about, I had some dishes on top of the car and they fell off onto the ground and broke. Scott's going to talk about an incident where his mom said some very terrible things about his dad, wishing terrible things upon him. But she broke some dishes because she was mad when she went down to the basement where he lived and got the dishes. He spilled Mountain Dew or something like that. The man loved his Mountain Dew. Loved it. Cigarettes and Mountain Dew. She got so mad that she broke the dishes. Slammed them. Found it in his trash can. A set of dishes. When she's talking, the defendant is kind of all things to all people. That's what the evidence is going to show you. It's going to pivot. It's going to pivot. You're going to hear about two people in this case that pivot. She pivots. She's talking, she's smart, she knows what's going on, they're asking questions. She says, at one point, their marriage is not good. They live in the same household, but they're not living really as husband and wife. There are some good times, they try to do some stuff. They're living in separate rooms, separate floors. But at one point, she comes across and they ask, you've been married to him for 38 years, and, if it's that bad, and you'll hear about how she describes the marriage and things, why'd you stay with him? Took a vow to him. I took a vow. The evidence is going to show in this case that the defendant is loyal to two people. Very loyal. She's loyal to a man. There's something called prior difficulties. About 10 years before the murder, the defendant had an affair, we believe, with a guy named Ted Wiley. Ted was in a relationship with Gary's sister. They met, they hung out, and they started doing stuff, and the family knew what was going on. They separated, we believe because of this. Gary considered divorce, didn't do it. They reconciled, but they lost trust. And this is where things change. The whole relationship changed because of this. Now, Gary worked with a lady, probably had a fling or something with her, not to the same degree, years ago. So they both had their issues. But the degree and the extent and the blatantness of this changed everything. And Gary started controlling finances. Her mindset was, to law enforcement, I took a vow to him. Because you're going to hear evidence in a text message between her and another guy that would shrink the world and rule out. A guy that's a neighbor that met her when she would walk. She would walk all the time. She's tough. In a text message, when she was upset with Gary, we believe, she's talking about, she said, my response to his fit he threw was, I hope you die alone in a gruesome death. She's asked by law enforcement, she didn't say anything about hoping he died or anything like that. Terry responds and says, there you go, he's going to push you over the edge. I know, and that scares me. Told him finally to go where could not even see or hear him. It would be in his best interest. You're going to see some text messages and things in this. She portrays this and pivots. But an ever constant in their marriage, tension, an ever constant tension is money. She did not like that Gary would use his money the way he did. It's referred to sometimes by people as the Ferris wheel because there was drama. There was definitely drama. Chris had his issues. Melody didn't really like Chris. Chris would use checking account numbers and credit card numbers and things like that. And he had paid for, coming up to this point, he had paid for a beach vacation. I think we're in a condo or something like that. Melody was furious. She did not like that Gary was just going to go with him. And Gary basically he'd say stuff, but he'd write the check or he'd say, okay. He wouldn't really do anything. It's his kids, his sons. He could afford it. She'd say things like, this is the last straw. I've had it, I'm taking measures. It shows that her mindset is this money, this money, this money. And that leads to this. Bullet in his ribs. They go in the house and look at the house. These are steps going down to the basement. There's blood. There's going to be evidence of blood and cleanup in the kitchen or domain. Down the steps. When you get off those steps, if you take off those steps, you can see it. Scott saw some blood on the floor down there. Law enforcement saw it. They go back and spray Blue Star. It's chemical stuff that'll light us up, and you'll see it. You see those 4, 3, 2, 1 placards there? It's a trail of blood. I've circled this so you can see. Down there is a sofa. There's a ottoman, I believe is the term. And as you get closer, law enforcement found another bullet. We do not know how many times Gary was shot. We know he was shot and killed. We know there are at least 2. Blood trail from the kitchen up there. We believe the evidence is they had an argument. She shot him. He goes downstairs trying to get away. She shoots him again. Whether he was able on his own to get out those doors or she got him out herself. Top and bottom. No home invasion. No robbery. Nothing. That brings us to what we call means, motive, and opportunity. How do you get away with a murder if there's no confession? How do you get away with a murder if there's no video of it? How do you get away with a murder if you try to burn and destroy all the evidence. You don't. When you use your common sense and all the evidence to put it together to shrink the world, and the only reasonable answer is she did it. For example, if they say Scott did it, Scott's not going to shoot us dead when he's paying all the bills. It's a gravy train. That's just not going to happen. Let's first talk about opportunity. The reason why you shrunk the world down, and you will see at the times in this case, when he was killed and when his body was moved, when things are going on, the only person that's going to be at that house, the only person, is her. No one else. Just her. Sure, people were coming and going, but not when things were going on. The other thing you consider is sometimes in the case, what strong evidence is deception, mendacity. When you see that, she's cloaked in lies. And you'll see it through the trial. The evidence will show that. Here's the thing she says about fires. The context, the common sense, the circumstantial evidence. Gary liked to set things on fire. He liked to burn stuff. Think about 2008, they had another house, Alpharetta, that they moved from to the farm. He set, I think, the backwoods on fire or something at night. Caught on fire. She hated that with understandable concern. It's dangerous. People are scared of fires. I get it. She's concerned about that. And then in the same house before this murder in 2016, I believe, he set the house on fire from the basement up, smoking cigarettes in the trash can, left them there, and they caught the house on fire. She went after him. She is strong-willed. She has a backbone. She's tough-minded. And she would tell him how she felt. She told investigators things like this. I try to put together some of the things you'll hear. She had gotten so scared of fire after that. She had been just scared of the fire. She was scared to death. She figured Gary would burn her house down. They just didn't leave him here much alone, because he would, I think she said, break a steel trap or something like that. She told Gary, don't leave the fire. She told Gary, please don't leave the fire. She told Gary, when discussing dinner, that you cannot go off and leave that fire. She told Gary, you got to watch the fire. She said there's no reason with him. He's a lawyer. He was going to burn it or die trying. Slip of tongue, but that's what she said. That was the opportunity. It's going to be her. Means. Means is how could you have done it? Because the question you're going to have in your mind, and it's going to boil down to this case, is how did that little lady get that big man on the burn pile? She's a cowgirl, farm girl. Her daddy owned a hardware store growing up. She's been around it. She had ropes, leads, straps, tow lines. Did I mention they had a tractor? Means. Necessity is the mother of all inventions. You just committed murder, you'll be motivated if you have the means. Did I also say tell you they had an RTV? She knew I was driving a boat. Wednesday morning, Scott leaves to go play golf about 7 o'clock that morning. She doesn't leave, go to the lake till around 12 something. No one's in the house. She comes back that night and tells the kids they go to bed early. Motive. In my business, there's nothing new under the sun. You don't have to be smart to be an attorney. You have to have common sense. When it comes to motive, the question you're going to have is, one is, how does she get him out there? That's answer. They're just going to answer that. Why did she do this? Why would a wife, even for a husband that she doesn't like, he has money. Well, she didn't inherit, intestate succession. She gets stuff under Georgia law. Even if he died of an accident, she'd probably get more money. Motive. let me introduce you to a person called Rusty. Law enforcement trying to figure out what's going on. They're at the house, they get consent, things like that. They search her purse and they find, you know, the things you think you find in a purse, but they find this bank card, credit card, debit card, whatever it is, it's a financial card. And they find the name Roy Barton on it. And so they're asking him, hey, who's Roy Barton? Well, she says, my cousin, Martha Jane, was married to Roy Barton years ago. In fact, in 2014, that's when this kind of starts off. But she doesn't mention Rusty. She's playing it off as Roy Barton Sr. And he's died. And I just had that, forgot it was there, something along those lines. The Rusty Barton, though, the Rusty Barton, it's not the senior, it's junior. He's a character. He's reluctant. He's talking about the evidence going to show he's going to change. You're going to be introduced to Rusty Barton, who's from Tennessee, and we're bringing him in. I do not know what he will say on that stand. I know what he said in the past. He's flip-flopped. That's what the evidence is going to show. But you're going to be able to use the law, which is called prior inconsistent statements. You're going to be able to judge when he said this, and when he says this, and when he says this, what do you believe? A little background on Rusty. He knew them since teenagers. I think he knew her when she was 15. Martha Jane, which is her second cousin, more like a mother figure. She loves Martha Jane. Martha Jane's a good woman, a godly woman. Martha Jane loves. They were married to Rusty's father. So Martha Jane and Roy Sr. were married. Rusty and the defendant became romantic in about 2014. She was up there helping her, Martha Jane. I think she had open heart surgery. In fact, Rusty actually took Martha Jane to Emily's wedding. Up close and personal. The affair was going on for about 4 years, 2014, 2018. Inactive. Gary knew about it. There's an email he received that put him on notice about from Rusty's girlfriend. You're going to hear him ask questions about Rusty talking to her, telling her, don't do that. Rusty did internet searches about the wedding rings when law enforcement was talking to him. They would rendezvous in Dalton, which is about halfway from Tullahoma, Tennessee, and Alpharetta. Almost halfway exactly. Exit 333. They'd meet up there. In the beginning, it was monthly, several weeks ago, and then it became weekly. She would just disappear. Family knew what was going on. They had suspicions, but they didn't realize who Rusty was until this point. They kind of have a 6-month plan. Rusty believed, based on what the defendant was telling him, according to Rusty, that Gary had some esophagus cancer or something, bleeding, something going on, so he was sick and he was going to die. And they kind of had this plan after Gary passed away. Naturally, they would, for 6 months, lay low, and then they would come back and get together. They were in love. They talked like junior high kids in love for the first time, all the time. They had a regular pattern. Law enforcement interviewed Rusty on certain occasions. There's these days where Rusty was interviewed and basically goes from, I don't know anything, and then they press him. We told you in a trial like this, it can be a contact sport. The attorneys can get after it. We can get after it. I can get after it. And they get after it with Rusty. I'll be professional. But they did the good cop, bad cop with Rusty because he didn't want to give up on Melody. And you're going to hear how they talk to him about this is a death penalty case. You can be arrested for this. You can be, what side do you want to be on in the courtroom? All techniques law enforcement use to have someone talk. He talks to them. And they use him in the sense of they would get information from him, and then he was willing to cooperate and record some calls and some things like that. But look at this pattern here. He talked for some time, and in June of 2019, he recants something he told law enforcement in July of 2018. And y'all familiar with the first 48 hours? In law enforcement, in this business, you get to someone as quickly as they can because if there's time, they will change. Feelings change. In the beginning, he says one thing, and then he gives up more and more. It's like pulling teeth. Finally get it out. But he recants. And this is what he recants. The evidence in the case is going to show that when you shrink the world to the only person that had the motive was her, the only person that was home when this could occur, Tuesday evening, going in from Tuesday the 3rd to Wednesday the 4th, about 2 o'clock in the morning, law enforcement talks to Rusty and says, all right, what did she say? And he describes it as the last minute, last conversation. This is what he tells law enforcement. She said, Gary's in the burn pile. No. She said, he is in the burn pile. And I said, what? And then she said, he is in the burn pile. I said, do not say another word and do not tell me anything. I do not need to know that. This is what, before the murder's known, anything like that, he's on the phone. The record's going to show that he had 3 or 4 main phone calls during this time. It's going to show that his pattern when he would talk to her was abnormal for this time. There's a phone call. And he says, I talked to her. And this is what she said. He's in the burn pile. This would have been July 4th. Now he comes back a year later and recants. Well, his presence and companionship is with the defendant. Law enforcement goes, gets arrest warrants, goes up to Tullahoma, Tennessee to arrest her, and guess who she's with? Rusty. After she's arrested, she's in jail before she bonds out. There's actually jail calls. And you're going to hear some of those. And we told you there's going to be calls and things like that. And you're going to have to be patient with us. It's going to be a lot of information. It's just a piece of this puzzle. But at the end of the day, it's going to show the defendant. So his past, being arrested, he recants to law enforcement. Oh, she didn't say that. I was pressured. I was under duress. I was taking sleeping pills. I was under alcohol. And then she's talking to him on a phone call. And this is just a part. Now, you're going to hear the whole thing later on. But this is what we call consciousness of guilt. It was going to show that she says this, and this is not what an innocent person would say to her lover.
Sure.
No. Well, like a long time ago, I just stopped talking.
Right.
I haven't done anything.
I know that, Norman.
But because what you keep talking about, you're going to single-handedly hang me.
Speak the truth. This is what charges: malice murder, felony murder, aggravated assault, concealing death of another, and making false statements. We are here because Gary cannot be here. And the only reason we're here is by her hand. Malice murder is the unlawful killing of somebody with malice or forethought. It doesn't mean someone's wicked in that sense, or malice in the sense that is hatred or things like that. It is the unlawful intent to kill. And the judge is going to charge him with that. One shot. Be felony murder for fighting and she just reacts. 2 shots and burning. It's depraved. Felony murder, the evidence is going to show that even if she didn't intend to, with malice, to kill him, that intent to kill, that she had that gun in it, just went off. Not the case because she shot him twice. That's still felony murder. It's not the intent to kill, it's the intent to do the underlying felony, which is aggravated assault. Pointing the gun at someone and shooting them, and they die. Even if you didn't mean for them to die, it's still felony murder. There's no malice involved. There's no intent to kill. Aggravated assault is just the shooting. Concealing death of another. The law is designed to prevent certain conduct, and the case that you have before you shows what it's designed to prevent. Not only was Gary Farris murdered, and he has friends and family that watch this, that are here, but they were deprived of him. because she burned them up. False statements because she lied to law enforcement about Russell. Y'all forget about all this out here. My job, representing the district attorney, is to present this case to you without fear, favor, or affection. Your job, under your oath, is to speak the truth. I talked to you about veritas. You see the word verdict. It's truth, speak. It's the word veritas with dit in Latin, to speak. When you're done with this case, take all the time you need. Forgive me when I bumble through things, when I get sideways, when I'm doing my job. But remember, I am representing a voice that has been snuffed out and taken away. And Megan Frankis and I are going to present you with the evidence. And there's two sides to the truth. That is, where you see the deceit and the lies in this case, that points to who did it. When you see the opportunity, the means, and the motive, money, sex, new life, the truth, as sad as it is, as hard as it is that the defendant murdered and desecrated her own husband.
Frank,
Would this be a good time for a break, or?
I'm gonna let y'all go and then we'll break after that. Reset. Anybody need a break? I got one taker. All right. We'll go ahead and take a break. It'll be, if one of you are going to, and all the dominoes will fall, so it'll be 10 minutes. So we'll go ahead and take a break. That's fine. All right. They started it a little earlier. get started? Or continue? You ready? All right, go ahead and bring them in. I went ahead and sent them down to get coffee and told our smoker she'd go take a break.
This is the Outcast Podcast coming to you live on YouTube with the husband burned murder trial, Georgia versus Melody Walker Farris, day one.
All right, Mr. Ray, you ready to proceed? All right, go ahead.
Mr. Weaver, as y'all recall, he did die, so I didn't get to talk too much. We kind of broke it up. He got stuck with that task in lieu of me doing opening statements. So my name is Michael Ray. Along with John Luke Weaver, we're representing Mr. Farris. Thank y'all for your service. I know that a 3 or 4, excuse me, a 3 or 4 week long trial is not how you anticipated spending your beginning of fall. So we do appreciate that, and we have worked quite diligently. You know, I've had this case for 6 years now, of trying to whittle it down to what is the most important pieces of evidence to show to you and to present to you, so that you can make a decision in this case. So I don't think we're going to go beyond 4 weeks. It could get done as early as 3, but it might go into 4. But we're definitely going to try to get it moving as quickly as possible. For your jury service, Abraham Lincoln said that one of the greatest services of a citizenship is jury duty. And I think that's very true. It's the equivalent, in my opinion, of voting, because without you, 16 people we have, or if it was in state court, the 6 people we would have, without you, we couldn't do this. We couldn't do our job. Justice couldn't be done. Justice couldn't be done for Melody without you. So thank you for serving. When you act as a juror, or when you're sitting as a juror, in this particular case, and in all cases, you are essentially the conscience of the community. Because you're going to hear this evidence, then you're going to apply it to the law that the judge is going to give you, and you're going to render a decision. But if you recall, when Judge Cannon was going over the oath with you that he read to you last thing, I know you've taken a lot of it. You took one downstairs when there was 120 of them, and you took another one when you came in your jury. And then you came in with the 16 of you, and you took another one. But in that oath that you took an oath to give a truth verdict according to the evidence. And that's what we're asking you to do. And you heard the judge say that it's your duty to render a truth verdict based on the evidence. And that's exactly what we'll be asking you to do. Now, Mr. Focus, he did a good job in his opening statement. So some of the things are duplicated. Obviously, when he came in, he didn't know what I was going to say. And when I came in, I didn't know what he was going to say. But I don't want to sit there and regurgitate the same things. But we got to talk about a few things. That one being the indictment. Mr. Focus did a great job going through explaining it. So just kind of to recap what Ms. Farris is charged with. 1, malice murder. That is essentially, to keep it simple, and we'll go over it much deeper at the end when the judge actually gives you the charge, and then we get to argue. What malice murder is? Somebody's alive, I don't want them alive. And they're dead. That's malice murder. Felony murder, I commit a felony act, and it causes that person's death. Like trying to rob somebody, accidentally shoot them, felony murder. That's what it is. In this case, the felony is the aggravated assault. State alleges that Miss Farris shot her husband, Gary Farris. And that was an aggravated assault, and as a result of that assault, he died. So that's how felony, murder, and aggravated assault are linked together. Concealing the death of another is pretty obvious. There's a little more depth to it when you actually look at the actual elements of the offense, but you can imagine what that is. Somebody has passed away, and you have concealed it. Making false statements, that's lying to the police. We always say defense attorneys police can lie to you, but you cannot lie to the police. It's actually a crime. So, this case, and you've heard a little bit of it from Mr. Fogus, but you've probably seen on your crime show, because I know from Bordier, a lot of you watch the podcast, the crime shows, the true crime and all that. And you always see defense attorneys talking a lot of time about there's been a rush to judgment in this case. You know, rush to prosecute the first person that you can get your hands on. Well, that wasn't this case. Melody was under investigation in this case for almost a year, between the 911 call that you're going to hear shortly and her arrest on June 18th of 2019. So there wasn't a rush to judgment, but what we had in this case was different. It was called confirmation bias. And we'll talk more about this in close, but what a confirmation bias is you got a belief and you've got facts. And that belief and those facts merge together. And that's what you believe. Even though you have all of these other facts over here, you just ignore those facts because that's not in your belief. And that's not in the facts that you want to look at. And that is a confirmation bias. You're going to see from the evidence in this case, from day one, the investigation by Detective Hayes and all the other officers in Cherokee County Sheriff's Office, even the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation, the GBI, everything that was done in this case was tailored specifically to attempt to convict Melody, the death of Gary Farris. One big thing you're going to hear, and you're going to hear it a lot, is Scott Farris. You are going to hear the 911 call here shortly. That's the first thing we're going to do. I'm going to play you the 911 call. 13 minutes after law enforcement arrives, Scott Farris is already blaming his mother. He knows nothing. They're not even sure if there is a body on the phone call. They're not even sure it's Gary. He's already planting the seeds of blaming his mother. 13 minutes. And law enforcement took that into their beliefs. And then they focused their evidence on that. And that is confirmation bias. Now, you heard Mr. Fogus talk about the Ferris wheel, and I talk about it too. But this was a turbulent family. The best is, and we'll go through, I have a family tree to go over with you that kind of lays everybody out. But one of them, his name's Chad Bruce. He is now married to Amanda. And Chad Bruce, when he was interviewed, he said, I always called it the Ferris wheel. It's like a soap opera. Something is always going on with Chris, Scott, and Emily. And it's true. All the time. All the time. And I'll talk a little bit more about it. But you're going to see text messages. Gary mad that they're blowing money. Chris can't survive on his own, always needing money. Scott, a grown man, can't survive on his own, always needing money. Coming to get mama's credit card so he can go get some money. Emily with her turmoil with her new husband and all that. In fact, you're also going to hear that Gary and Melody had to buy Emily and her husband the house up in Tennessee where they live. There was a lot of turmoil in this family. But jumping on the Ferris wheel, first off, who is Melody? Melody was born in 1960. And she was born in Smyrna, Tennessee. And she had a somewhat unusual upbringing, especially for that point in time. Melody was very little, and they moved from Smyrna and moved to Tullahoma. You already heard a little bit about Tullahoma. It's actually where Melody was arrested. That's where Martha Jane lives. That's where Rusty lives. and I'll talk a little bit more about all this. They moved to Tullahoma, and Melody and her mother, Kay, lived with Melody's grandparents. And that went on for a few years, and eventually Kay Walker met a man named Carl Walker, and they got married. And then they continued, once they were married, they bounced around a little bit. They went from Tullahoma to Nashville, Nashville to Florence, Florence back to Nashville, just kind of bouncing around this North Alabama, central Tennessee and back down area, just moving around. Then when Melody was a teenager, they finally settled in Florence, Alabama. It's in the north. You've probably heard of Muscle Shoals. It's right there. And that's where eventually Melody started going to high school, was in that area. And so now you're like in the mid-70s, and that's actually when Melody meets Gary Farris. They met when they were 16 years old. They didn't go to the same high school. They actually met through mutual friends at the same church, and they began dating. And they dated through high school, and then in 1970, they got married. So at 1960, I think it was 79, they got married, because Melody was 19 years old. Now, they get married, right out of high school, and they both go to the University of North Alabama. Melody's there for about a year, and then she drops out. Gary stays on. So Melody leaves. They're still together. They're still married. And she's working at General Electric Credit and Ace Hardware. Her Kay Walker, her mother, Carl Walker, opened up Ace Hardware in Florence, Alabama. And that's where Melody worked. And you'll hear a lot about Ace Hardware. She worked there for many, many, many years, helping them out with their business. So in 1980, while Gary's still in school, Chris Farris is born. Now Melody is working full-time at this point at the hardware store. Gary's full-time college student. 1983 rolls around, Scott Farris is born. Melody's still working at the hardware store. Gary's still going to school. Now you fast forward a little bit, Gary's graduated, and in 1988, they have Emily. And at this point, they've moved to Tuscaloosa to the University of Alabama. And that's where Gary goes to law school. So they're living there with the 3 kids while Gary's in law school. And then in 1989, Amanda Farris, who's now Amanda Bruce, she's born. Excuse me. In 1989, the following year, Gary graduates law school, and the family moves to Birmingham, where he works for Berg Foreman, the same firm that he was at when he passed away. Now, in 1995, the law firm sent Gary to Atlanta. They were trying to expand, have a different office in Atlanta. Gary was going to be a major part of that. I think when he actually first got there in 95, there was there's only him and another person there. It wasn't, this huge law firm, at least here in Atlanta, at that point in time. So 95, you got 4 kids, really ranging from kindergarten to Chris, at that point in time, being about 15 years old. Melody's a stay-at-home mom. She's going back and forth to Florence to help her parents with the hardware store and just living. And an interesting point then comes later in 1997 to Melody is Carl Walker, who she thought was her father, passed away. And while she was at the funeral, a relative came up to her and told her that, just so you know, Carl Walker's not your father. And so then that leads on to her trying to figure out who her actual father is. And she does. But Carl raised her. It's just an odd thing, to kind of come out of the blue in 1997 at his funeral. Now in 2013, it's kind of the next major event. That is when Gary and Melody buy the Purcell Lane house, where you saw the photos and Mr. Fogus's opening of the house. That's when that was purchased, 2013. They move in there, and when they get there, shortly thereafter, Scott moves in to move into the apartment that is above the barn. Now, all the kids, they also have kids and wives that are relevant to this case. And Scott was married to Jenna, and her name was Jenna Farris. Since Gary's death, they have, my understanding is they have divorced. She has changed her name. I'm not going to try to pronounce it. I haven't talked to her to figure out how she pronounces it. But that is, Jenna Farris was her name. Chris also has other children by another woman, and that is Ella Farris and Addison Farris. Ella, at the time in July, the 3rd, 4th, 5th of 2018, she was over at her friend Emily's house, or I'm sorry, Emma's house. And Addison was over at Melody and Gary's house on the 5th, or I'm sorry, on the 4th. She came over after the lake. And I'll go through the timing. Emily, this is Chris Payne, with the prior difficulties of the family. Chris Payne was a little bit of that. And Amanda is married to Chad. Chad's the one I was telling you about. He's the one who talked about the Ferris wheel and about how there's always something going on. And basically, this family is like a soap opera. That is Chad. And Chad also has a daughter by another woman, and her name is Cameron Brooks. Cameron is who was there with Addison on the 4th. Now, let's talk about the time. So, you already heard a lot about the burn pile. So, Gary did start the burn pile on July 3rd. Okay, we know that. That's a fact. Also, a couple of other interesting things happened. Addison and Cameron don't live in Georgia. All right? Those are Chris's children, or Ella and Addison do not live in Georgia. They live in Maine. On July 3rd, they flew in to Hartsfield-Jackson. Chris went and picked them up, and they drove up. They came to Melody and Gary's house. Ella had already been dropped off at Emma's house, and Addison came with Chris to see Melody and Gary. And they see both Melody and Gary. Now it is, and I'll go into it more here in a moment, there is some contention about what Addison says, how the house was on the 4th, but we'll talk about that here in a minute. Now on the 4th, that is when Melody goes to Lake Lanier. We actually, you'll see, and the evidence will show that we've got a parking receipt. Actually got two things. We've got a parking receipt from Lake Lanier that shows the time that she went in. There's also a ATM slip that was in her car that we got photographs of, show that her withdrawing money, and that was on the 3rd. And we'll talk about those here more in a minute. July 4th, that is when Addison and Cameron spend the night at the house. Now, Cameron and Addison, the evidence show they have two different versions of events about how it was. Addison's more, it was kind of weird. Melody didn't want us to go outside. She made us go to bed early. Cameron will testify that they did go outside. They went and saw the horses. Nothing was weird. We actually snuck out of the house at 10 o'clock, went to the hot tub, were in the hot tub for a while, came back in, went to bed. Nothing really out of the normal. The reason, and you'll also see that some evidence from Addison. There's a text message to Melody from Addison that says, hey, can we spend the night tonight on July the 3rd? And Melody responds, says, no, not tonight. And we'll have to uncover the reason for that through the evidence. I don't want to speculate here as to what that was. But we do know that that is true. She said, no, not tonight. And she spent the night the following after they got back from Lake Lanier. On July 5th, that is where things with this case get interesting. The remains are found on the burn pile. Now, that day started, Melody grocery shopping, the kids are there. But to sum it up, what it's really going to show is the girls wanted to ride the RTD. Melody says, go downstairs and ask your grandpa. They called him Big Daddy. Go downstairs and ask him. He's not there. I don't know where he is. So they start looking for him. Eventually, Amanda comes over because what originally the plan was is Melody, Amanda, Addison, and Cameron, they were going to have a day together. They were probably going to go eat lunch. They talked about potentially going to get the nails done. Basically just having a girls' day. Now, when Amanda got there, they all began looking around the house. Can't find him. Gary's nowhere to be found. His car's still there. But none of this is super out of normal. Gary was a workaholic. Sometimes he would take Uber so he didn't have to drive. He essentially would be gone, for days. He may come home, he may not. We'll get into their relationship here in a minute. So it wasn't, no alarms were really raised at this point. Now, Scott comes over, and that's where things do get in this. When Scott gets there, he comes in the house, and immediately goes downstairs. After complaining to the family, something along the lines of, "Where's the gun?" And he goes downstairs in return and says, "The gun's gone." Now let's talk about this gun. I call it the magic gun, because Scott Farris is the only person to ever see this gun. There's nobody else, only him. You'll hear evidence that he found it in the drawer while he was looking for a remote to help the DirecTV. And then he found the gun. He gives a very detailed description of it. And that's it. Nothing else. And this was a few months before July when he had the DirecTV. Actually, I think it was the beginning of June, so about a month before is when Scott sees this gun. And he claims he has no idea, he's never seen this gun before. It's very strange, this gun is here, and he didn't know anything about it. But he also didn't do anything. Now, 6 years later, this is where Jenna Farris kind of comes in and is interesting. 6 years later, she gives an interview to the district attorney's office, claiming she also saw it in the basement that you saw in Mr. Bogus' area. However, this gun looked completely different than the one Scott described, and is in a completely different location than where Scott said it was. So these are the only two people that have seen this gun, and the guns they described don't even match each other, and one of them talked about it 6 years later. Now, after Gary's remains were found, he was taken down to Georgia Bureau of Investigation, Forensics Department, to the crime lab, and that's where an autopsy was performed. But after July 5th, 2018, 348 days. Melody's not arrested at this point. She's interviewed several times. I believe the evidence will show that, or I believe that the state will be playing those interviews for you, so you'll actually see Melody testifying and answering law enforcement questions. But 348 days passed. And in that 348 days, you'll see evidence they were doing audio testing. What that was is they put a ballistics dummy in the living room of the house, and they shot it with a revolver. And they had members of the Cherokee Marshal's office, as well as some sheriff's office, out there with decibel readers at different points. They were out at the barn, they were out by the road, and they were also in the house, measuring what the decibel was for firing this revolver into this ballistic dummy. And then they moved the dummy downstairs, and they shot it a bunch of times downstairs. And you're going to see all this. You're going to play all of them doing the shooting and recording the sounds. Diving in the lake, you're going to see they brought out the Cherokee Sheriff's Department to dive into the lake to see about where the gun was. Didn't find anything. Recording Melody's phone calls. And we'll talk more about this momentarily. Rusty, because you already heard about him, agreed with Detective Hayes that he would put some kind of app on his phone and record all their phone calls. And he did. Months. You're going to hear a lot of those. Also, during that 348-day time, Scott and Chris are interviewed several times. Sometimes Scott and Chris are interviewed together, at least on one occasion, and several times Scott is interviewed alone. And then, on June 12th, over 11 months later, the crime lab issues the autopsy report, saying that Gary was the manner of death and the cause of death. The cause of death was gunshot. The manner of death was homicide. And it took them 11 months to issue that report. You'll see especially when the forensic pathologist who did the autopsy testified. They weren't waiting on anything. They knew that it was Gary. The forensic, the dental forensic had already come back. It was already Gary. But for some reason, unknown. And you'll see, this happens a lot in this case. There's a lot of unknown, and we'll talk about that. No idea why it took 11 months to issue the autopsy report. No idea. But 6 days later, Melody gets arrested. And Mr. Focus is right. She wasn't in Oklahoma, Tennessee. She was up there with Mark again. They called her and said, hey, we're going to arrest warrant for you. And she came and turned herself in. Nothing to hide. Now, John Luke and I came up with this. Actually, well, we didn't come up with it. He had gone. We were been a long day already, so he was done for the day, so he left. And he went up to the drugstore, and there was a girl in there. And the drugstore, I don't know if your office is in downtown Jasper. There's a Jasper drugstore right on the corner on Main Street in Jasper. It's being sold, and they're doing renovation. He went in there and asked them a question about something. They didn't know, and they go, sometimes the greatest questions go unanswered. And he was like, perfect. Brought me out of my slump. Now I know what I'm dealing with. So that's kind of what we've been talking about the whole time with this case. Because so many things you're going to be asking yourself so many times in this case. How did this happen? How did this happen? How did this happen? Who else? Nobody. So let's talk about some evidence and questions without answers. So Melody and Gary. It is no fact. Melody and Gary are fact. It is common knowledge that they had. People know. You can even, the grandkids, the evidence will show that even they had their suspicions, and they pretty well knew that, there was, affairs happening. Melody did. She was having an affair with Rusty. Gary did. He brought, when they moved here in 1995, Angela Phillips was the secretary. He brought her with him from Birmingham to Atlanta. And she was the secretary for 28 years. And they had, she's a bit hesitant to talk about it. I believe you'll be hearing from her about how they did have a relationship. Gary was also having a relationship, at least somewhat by text and email, with another woman who worked in his building named Joanne Ward or Joanne Hill. So, and you'll also hear from Ted Wiley. Okay, they had affairs. They lived completely separate lives. In the house that Mr. Focus is showing, in the house, Melody lived upstairs. You saw the house, and it may not be in evidence, but you saw it. That place looks like Southern Living magazine, decorated to the nines. Melody did all that. She lived upstairs. Gary lived downstairs. It was just how they'd done it. It had always been that way for years, ever since the 90s. They lived two separate lives. They would sometimes go days without even seeing each other, without speaking to each other. They didn't really talk. They didn't really communicate. They did. They had kids.
So they had to have some interaction. They went and saw Emily and Chris's daughter.
So they did some of these family things together, but for the most part, they were just married people who did their own thing. And Melody did her thing, and Gary did this. It was just what worked for them. Now, granted, with the affairs, it wasn't something that was flaunted in their faces. You try to keep some level of discretion, but it was known, and it was just how they lived. Now, Melody's interviews, I expect that you'll be seeing those interviews. And really, the only thing I want to point out of that is Melody is very blunt, very to the point. She's just who she is. She's a hard woman. And that's how she comes off. That's how she is with law enforcement. Very matter of fact. Here's what happened. Here's what I was doing. That's just how she is. But one of the most important things that she said in her interview, in the very last interview, last thing you would say to law enforcement was, I just want my family back. Forensics. There's a good bit of forensics in this case. Some is pretty interesting. I'm going to talk to you. I didn't want to do any of the photographs, but those blood drops that we're talking about, Mr. Bogus, you're going to see that there is blood. Well, back that up. You will see there is a substance leading down to the basement. You're going to hear from the GBI Land Coffee. She sprays Blue Star, which is a substance that's supposed to reflect when it's blood. Now, well, that's a whole nother thing. You're not going to hear anything about that being of whose blood it is, even if it isn't. And you go down the stairs. They did take a swab, but they find some little drops of blood. Some of them are about as small or even smaller than 1 centimeter on the floor. Take a swab of those, send it off. That was Gary's blood. Those blood trails never leave out of the house. Upstairs or downstairs. We also, the bullet. We're going to be talking a lot about the bullet. How there's no textiles found on the bullet that is found in the basement. We also have our own forensic pathologist who will be testifying about what his opinion is regarding the manner and cause of death of Gary. And we may also end up calling an additional ballistics expert, depending on how things play out with the ballistics experts going to testify for the GPI. But that is just the way you see. Text messages, the text messages to Terry Braswell, Mr. Fogus had gotten in his opening, the hope he died a gruesome death. It is a text message. We expect Terry Braswell to come in here and testify. We'll be able to cross-examine him about that text message. However, we do know one fact, excuse me, is that text message was sent 2 years before.
It wasn't something that was done in July of 2018 or even June of 2018. Years before.
Especially see text message from Gary and Scott about their tumultuous relationship, especially involving money. Gary sending Scott, I better have my debit card back. Also see Melody and Scott, they used to text back and forth a lot. And recorded phone calls. Gonna hear that all those calls with Rusty. Now, also with finances. Now, while that house was very nice, and it was like $1 million house. And it's decorated to nice. And yeah, we've actually got some of Gary's pay stubs, and after taxes, he was bringing home $20,000. Can't remember if it was every 2 weeks or every month. But that home, mortgage to the hill. Debt high, cash low. Gary stopped working, his family's over. And that's exactly what happened. Gary passes away, you're going to hear first thing that happens to the house, foreclosed. Didn't have enough money to pay for it. Cars gone, everything put in storage. So while they made a lot of money, they blew a lot of money. Now Gary did have some good investment. He had a 401k with his law firm, 401k, profit sharing with the law firm, insurance, life insurance, things like that. But you know, all those aren't accessible cash that you can use. So Gary had to keep working to fund this lifestyle. Now, questions without answers. Where was Gary shot?
When Dr. Goody testifies, she's going to have a drawing of a skeleton.
It's going to have, show the ribs, and it's going to show he was shot somewhere here. The front or in the back? Not going to be able to take it. Angles, don't know. No idea. Also, that's just where was he shot on the body. Where was he shot in the house? the evidence is going to show while there may be some blood, and that was not tested, so we'll call it maybe blood. Upstairs in the in Melody's portion of the house, we'll call it, and a trail leading downstairs to Gary's portion, we'll call it. You're also going to get evidence from, most likely from Amanda, how a few days before July the 3rd, 4th, that Gary, excuse me, that Gary had been bitten by one of Melody's dogs on the ankle and was bleeding as he walked down the stairs down to his room so that he could stop the bleeding in his ankle. And that's where the blood came from. But where was he shot? No. How was he put on the burn pile? You're not going to hear about that either. You're going to see photographs of tractors. You're going to see photographs of RTVs. Probably of horses too. But you're not going to hear anything about Gary being moved on one of those vehicles. You will hear though that there was one drop of blood that was Gary's on the step getting up into the tractor. There's nothing in like the bucket. One drop of blood on the tractor. Where is the gun? Don't know that either. Now,
You're going to see photographs of guns. There were guns on the property. There was no 38 Fang on the property.
I think there was an old 32 caliber that was found on the property. But we know that wasn't the gun in question. But what you will find is that Scott has quite a bit of 38 caliber ammunition in the barn. And in fact, he's got it in his bedside table. But yet he claims, and when he testifies, I assume he will be claiming the same thing, that he does not own a 38 caliber pistol. He will claim that he owned a .357 Magnum at one point, but that gun had been stolen years ago, and he didn't have anything that would shoot a 38. Yet he has at least one full box of 38 special ammunition and a loose several other various brands of 38 special in his nightstand. And you'll see all those. You'll see the photographs of those. But where is the gun? No idea. Where are the bullets? They're in Scott's house. Scott's behavior. From the very beginning, like I told you, from the very beginning, God is saying, Melody, Melody, Melody. I thought she would do something. Leading law enforcement down this trail. And you're going to see all that. It's going to be very evident of what his intentions are regarding his mother. He does it in his interview, and he's going to do it on the stand here too. I would suspect that's exactly what he's going to do. But the most important thing is just in that few minutes of getting there, he's already talking about guns being missing. He's the only person that he's seen. Then he goes out looking. You're also most likely going to be seeing, there's a trail camera that was, if the burn pile was where I'm standing, kind of, I don't know how far, but down closer to the lake, kind of pointing at, they had a deer feeder down there. Take pictures there. And you're going to see that coming up to that camera, for some reason, and I don't think we'll ever get a straight answer, we don't know why those photographs got deleted. Or I said, who actually deleted them. Now we know because they were recovered.
So we know what photographs are on them, but we don't know of who did it.
Now, you heard the judge talking about, before you took the vote, about what reasonable doubt means. And he said that reasonable doubt was a doubt of a fair, minor, impartial jury, honestly seeking the truth. And he also went off for a little bit and talked about your minds are unwavering, unsettled, and unsatisfied. That is a doubt to the law, and with that you should quit defending. So essentially, when you're looking at this case, whenever we had done, when you're evaluating this case, you're evaluating all the evidence, you got to say, has the state proven your case beyond a reasonable doubt? What a reasonable doubt is that you have a doubt that you can put a reason to. It is reasonable. It is a reasonable doubt. Now, that is a high burden for the state. Now, I'll go over this and close. I know it's like how it shows that even if the state can get to reasonable doubt, no, that's still an acquittal. That's still not guilty, because they have to go beyond reasonable doubt. Remember, that is just a doubt for which you can put a reason. So, ladies and gentlemen, when you have, like in this case, when you have questions that go unanswered, when we're talking about unanswered questions of how did we get to the burn? Where's the gun? Where's the bullets? Where are these simple things that we should be able to find? And why, when we find them, they're in a place that we don't like where that's going. Law enforcement saw the bullets over in the barn. Yet here we are with Melody charged, malice murder, felony murder, ag assault. Nobody heard anything. You're not going to hear anything about this case that Melody heard, or that anybody heard Melody shoot, or that she admitted to somebody that she shot. You did hear from, and you'll hear from him again, from Mr. Barton, from Rusty, that he said, Melody said he's on the burn box. And what Mr. Barton changed, and he'll be under direct and cross-examination in this case, is what he changed. He didn't change what she said. He changed who she said. So he said, yes, Melody said they found him on the burn box, not on the 4th. It was on either the 5th or the 6th when she was talking to him, saying, hey, they found Gary dead on the burn box. Rusty didn't change what he said. He told him when he said it. He got it wrong. And he corrected it. So, ladies and gentlemen, when you have unanswered questions in a case like this, really the only answer is not guilty. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Fogos, you got witnesses ready? All right, go ahead. Y'all can decide whether y'all want the mobile lectern to stay there or whether y'all want to get rid of it. The last trial, everybody used both of them.
It's good, Justin. Keep it. Now, the first exhibit is going to be, it's labeled 911 call, and it is July 5th, 2018 at 12:47 p.m. July 5th, 2018 at 12:47 p.m. is about 2 minutes and 21 seconds. Scott Harris. Judge, I tune tonight's evidence this time by stipulation. May I publish? It's 911 and then 1. Here's the other. I'm not. Okay.
My father has come up missing, and we just searched the property as a small farm, and I just found something here to find that doesn't. She was burning brush, and now there's nothing to find that. It could be him. I don't know.
Okay. All right, sir. What's Purcell Lane run off?
It's right off of Birmingham Road.
You said 2155 Purcell Lane. That's correct.
Yes, sir.
Okay. What is your name?
Scott Farris. Farris.
What's a good callback number for you, Scott?
404-861-2667.
How old is you said your father?
Yes, sir.
How old is
He just turned on the 68.
he?
Yeah.
68, okay.
Now I'm calling you to say that we've been walking around looking for him, and I went where the fire is still smoldering, and I'm ex-military. I was deployed to Iraq. I've seen what burned up bodies look like, and this looks like a body.
Okay. All right, sir. I've got him on the way out there for you. I'm going to send the police and the fire department out there. Just try and leave everything that you can, that's the way you found it down there, and we've got him on the way out there for you. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Is there anything else I can do for you, sir?
No, that'll be it.
All right, sir. Thank you.
All right.
Bye bye.
Bye-bye.
State off Sarah Love. Sarah Love. Stand up and stretch. Let's see what they're catching. State your full name for the record.
Sarah Jane Love.
And where do you work and what do you do?
I'm a firefighter paramedic with Cherokee County Fire and Emergency Services.
What's your rank there?
Captain.
Tell the jury how long you've been doing what you do.
Well, I've been a paramedic for 28 years and I've been with the fire department for almost 22.
And what is I know there's paramedics, EMTs, and firefighters. What are they all and how are they different?
So there's an EMTI, which is like a basic, the lowest level you can work on an ambulance, and then an advanced, and then a paramedic.
And do you have a certain area that you work in the county, or is it just, how does that work?
You're typically assigned to a station.
You ever had to
A
testify
zone.
before the trial?
I'm sorry?
You ever had to testify before a trial?
Yes.
And you know why you're here today?
Yes.
I want to turn your attention now back to July 5th of 2018. It was a Thursday. I think y'all responded around right around 12:59 p.m. to the residents in this case. Is that wrong?
I don't have the date and time in front of me, but yes, we did respond.
Do you remember, was it midday, afternoon?
Afternoon, I believe.
If I told you it was around 1 o'clock, any reason to disagree with me on that?
No.
And do you remember where you went to, where the property was?
Yeah, that was in the area of Freeholm or Alpharetta.
2155 Purcell Lane in Alpharetta, Georgia.
Yes.
Is that the residence?
Okay.
And this was the Farris house, is that right?
I believe so, sir.
And was the house where you went when all this occurred, what county was that in?
Cherokee County.
Do you remember what you got called out for?
We got called out for a person fell into a fire.
Just a person falling into a fire?
Initially, yes, sir.
Now, as you were heading out there, tell the jury just kind of what did you pack up, what did you take, and what did you expect to see?
Well, we responded with the fire truck and the ambulance. I was on the ambulance that day. We were originally dispatched to a person falling in the fire, and then it became a person down call, which means that they need resuscitation.
Means what? I'm sorry. I didn't catch that.
They need to be resuscitated. They don't have a pulse or not breathing.
As you were going there and going to the scene, what did you think you were going to find?
We were going to find a patient that needed to be resuscitated.
Like a person?
Yes.
Maybe just falling out or something?
Yeah, we, just from the information, he fell in the fire.
When you got there, do you remember seeing anybody from the family, a son or not?
Yes, somebody met us at the end of the driveway. The driveway was pretty long, so the guys on the fire truck were getting onto the ambulance with us to ride in, and there was a gentleman there at the end of the driveway so that he would show us where the body was.
Were y'all there first before law enforcement, the sheriff's department?
I believe so, but they wasn't far behind us.
How long did it take you to get there from the call? Call came out about 12:47. Did it take you very long?
I don't believe so. I don't have my reports. I don't know exactly how long.
Was it a short drive?
Fairly short, yeah.
When you arrived, just kind of tell the jury what you remember seeing and what was going on.
So initially we stopped at the driveway, picked up the, what we found out later was the gentleman's son. He was telling us that he had been in Afghanistan and he had seen burned bodies before and he knew what they looked like, and I was trying to get information about if he was, breathing, if he was alert at the time, or, more information about the patient. And he just kept saying that over and over. And then when we got to the house, he rode in the back of the ambulance. When we got to the house, he walked us around to the back side of the house, to a large burn area.
When you first met with, it was going to be Scott, we believe, the son. When you first met with him, when you were talking to him, were you trying to ask him questions to see if he would answer them?
I was just trying to find out what kind of condition at the time we assumed the patient was going to be in. If it was, we were going to be working a cardiac arrest or just treating a burn patient, or what we were going to find when we got around to the back.
Was that because you thought there was going to be a human being there? Mm-hmm. And did you, when you were asking him questions, was he his state of mind? Was he telling you stuff? Was he able to tell you things?
He just kept saying over and over that he knew what a burned body looked like, and I was asking more like, was he breathing, and was he conscious? And he just kept saying he knew what a burned body looked like.
Yes, Your Honor. Now, we've marked exhibits a little differently in this case. Instead of one through whatever it is, we've met and marked them by numbers. Go ahead and take those if you have. Look at those. You had an opportunity to look at photographs before trial, I believe, haven't you?
Yes.
Go ahead and look at those and see if those. Now, it's going to be labeled aerial, as in aerial photographs. Go ahead and look at 1 through 14. Are those photographs aerial 1 through 14, are they fairly accurately represent the area that we're talking about?
Yes, sir.
Because this time I tend to evidence aerial 1 through aerial 14. She's seeing on your screen there, this is aerial 1. You see that?
Yes, sir.
I looked at the screen, this is just showing from the courthouse to the scene. Can you tell the jury about how many miles it is, approximately normal drive, how much time?
From the courthouse, 34 minutes and 16 miles.
34 minutes or 16 and a half miles, is that right?
Yes, sir.
And Purcell Lane, what area of the county is that in?
That'd be the northeastern corner.
And what is that, what type of homes and things are out there? Nice
Uh,
homes,
Yes, fairly large homes.
expensive area?
Yes,
Affluent
sir.
area, I guess is one trying to say.
Yes, sir.
And where were you coming from when you went there?
So where it says free home on the map and Highway 20, our station is about, very close to Highway 20 at that, where you would have turned off of Highway 20. Our station's right there.
This is aerial 2. This is showing coming down the road, Purcell Lane, as you come down Purcell. Was the driveway where you picked up Scott, was that at the time right there where Purcell Lane is and the driveway meets?
Yes, sir.
Do you remember the long driveway going up?
Yes.
So did you meet Scott down here or up in the driveway? Where was it?
At Purcell Lane, the fire engine's too big to get down the driveway. So the ambulance stopped there and the crew from the fire truck jumped on the back of the ambulance.
So they would have hopped in the ambulance and moved up the
Yeah.
driveway?
Yeah.
Aerial 3, this is just another head of Google Maps showing the property is. How would you describe this property if you could say, this is the type of property this looks like?
It's a very large, nice property. Couldn't really see the house at all from the road, from the trees. It's a very large property.
We've taken some aerials, about a year later, some drone photographs that you've been able to review. And this is aerial 4, so this is a snippet, if you would, from an aerial. Does this kind of look like the area that you went to on July 5th of 2018?
Yes, sir. I was more or less looking in the back, talking to the son. So I wasn't paying a whole lot of attention to the driveway, but yes, sir, that is the,
As we look at aerial 4, this photograph on the left of the screen is this big long driveway. Do you see that?
yes, sir.
As aerial 5, as you move up the driveway, is it correct to say that there's a road or driveway that goes to the right to the barn, but y'all went straight up to the house?
Correct, sir.
And then aerial 6, is this an aerial showing the pond?
Yes, sir.
Is this the house behind the trees here?
It appears to be, yes, sir.
How about that? Aerial
Yes, sir.
7,
Yes, sir, that is the house.
aerial 8, just another overview. Now, when you parked, and again, this is about a year later, but as you walk, did y'all walk around as where my mouse is on this item that's here, this white item? Did y'all go around this side, this left side, if you were facing the house?
Yes, sir, I believe so.
And then as you came around, did you come over to the back side where the burn pile was?
Yes, sir, we did.
Tell the jury, when you arrived expecting to see a person, when did things change for you? What did you see and what changed?
As we're walking up to the burn pit, you could see some long bones. I saw a foot and the skull.
And when you saw that, what in your mind was going on? What were you saying to yourself?
Just trying to make sense of it. It's not something you would typically see, so I was like trying to, like the skull, I thought maybe it was a rock. So I kind of moved it a little bit and put it back the way I found it. And the foot, probably what stands out the most is the foot.
What things, equipment did you have with you to expect to find a person?
So the guys from the engine grabbed the bed and the equipment, the cardiac monitor, the jump bag, and they were coming behind me, and me and the son were walking, a little bit ahead of them.
When you got there, what was found? What happened?
Well, when I saw the bones, I advised dispatch that it wasn't a person down. It was a signal 48, which means a deceased person, and then to have the coroner en route.
Did anybody touch the bones or do anything with it?
Only like I said, sir, the top of the skull looked like it may have been a rock, so I kind of lifted it a little bit and then put it back where it was when I realized it was definitely the skull.
So things changed from a person being held to a body, basically,
Correct.
remains. Is that
Yes, sir.
fair? Did law enforcement, were they quickly on the scene at that point? Did they come up?
Yeah, I remember them being right behind us.
I know you've probably seen a lot of things in your career, haven't
Yes, sir.
you? Did this shock you?
Yes, sir.
This states aerial 11 just showing this is a photograph showing the house in relation to the pond.
Yes, sir.
Aerial 12 going back over the pond to the arena, the sand pit. Is that fair?
Yes, sir.
13 just marching back down the driveway leaving.
Yes, sir.
And then 14 just going back to the road.
Yes, sir.
Now, you've had an opportunity to look at some, law enforcement was able to do some drone videos about a year later in June of 2019. Did you have an opportunity to look at those drone videos?
I did.
Just at this time, and were those videos fair and accurate as you know the property being released on?
Yes, sir.
I tend to evidence now aerial 15, aerial 16, aerial 17, which are 3 drone videos done by the sheriff's office about a year later.
All right, any objections? All right, they're admitted. I'm just gonna let this one play. It's about 2 minutes and 10 seconds long. We play now aerial 16, which is about 7 minutes and 13 seconds long. Captain Love, while that's going on, you went around this, as the drone is going, this left side is kind of how y'all approach the burn piles.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Heaven Love on State's Exhibit Aerial 16, roughly right 7 minutes. Is this a view showing from the burn pile to the house?
Yes, sir.
Next is State's Exhibit Aerial 17, which is 4 minutes and 27 seconds. Another drone video. Captain State's exhibit aerial 17, roughly at 3 minutes and 45 seconds, is it showing 2 doors on that side of the house in the basement level?
Yes.
After you realized what you were dealing with, did you turn the scene over to law enforcement?
Yes, sir.
Any further questions?
Anything? We need to replay the video. Open back up, please.
Good afternoon, Captain Love. My name is John Luke Weaver, and I represent Melody Farris. And it is Captain, correct?
Correct.
So on that day, you responded with who?
Me and my partner, Kenny Holland, were on the ambulance. On the fire truck was Jacob Kenny and Megan Hamilton.
So you got off of the ambulance,
Yes,
and you get, again, the fire truck could not make it up the driveway.
correct.
Why was that?
Because the weight of the fire truck, we don't typically drive the fire truck on driveways. If it's a long driveway, they'll either have to walk or they'll jump in the back of the ambulance. And on that call, they jumped in the back of the ambulance.
So you get out, you've got your pack, you don't really know what you have at the time, as you testified to earlier, but you walked up the driveway and you encountered, who did you encounter?
So at the end of the driveway, when we stopped and the crew from the fire truck was getting on, there was a gentleman at the end of the driveway telling us that he could show us where at the time we thought a patient was.
Okay. Now, you stated earlier that he kept saying to you he knew what a burned body looked like.
Correct.
And that's something that's resonated in your memory 6.5 years later.
Yes, sir.
Right? That was Scott Ferris, correct?
Yes, sir.
What was his demeanor?
He was, I guess the best word is just panic.
Do you remember anything else? Did he say anything else to you about where the location of this was?
That he would show us. He said it was a pretty good walk. He would show us where it was.
Now, were there any other family members close by as this was happening?
I did not see anyone else.
Did you speak to any of the other family members on the property?
No, sir.
Did he mention to you or to anybody that worked with you that day, did he ever bring up anything about a missing gun?
No, sir.
But how many times do you think he said he knew what a burned body looked like?
Probably 2-3 times when I was asking questions when we were still in the back of the ambulance.
Do you remember anything else he said?
I don't remember when he said it, but he said his dad had been missing for a couple of days and they'd been looking for him, but that wasn't unusual for him to be missing, I guess.
He said that to you?
Yes.
And that's when he walked you back there himself?
Yes.
And that was just as we saw in the video, back down the house, from behind the house. What would you say the grade on that piece of property was?
It was a little bit of an incline, but not too steep.
And how far behind? I mean, because videos and pictures certainly don't do justice necessarily to being the person. How far behind the house would you say that burn pile was?
I couldn't tell you. Because, I mean, at the time, I'm not thinking about how far I'm walking. I'm just, like, walking, trying to get some information, thinking about what we're going to do.
So generally speaking, so the images that we saw today were taken roughly a year later. You didn't take those pictures, correct?
Correct.
But Compare and contrast the state of the burn pile that day, July the 5th, 2008.
Just in reference to my report, I estimated it was probably about a 6 foot in diameter, I think 3 feet maybe high.
Was it still smoking? Could you tell? Was it hot?
I don't remember seeing any smoke, and we didn't bring our thermal alarm down there to check because we were on an EMS call and get the patient to the hospital.
And you mentioned that, now, did you have any gloves or anything like that on?
Yeah, we had medical exam gloves on.
So I imagine that you wouldn't have thought it was a very hot fire if you were to reach down and touch it.
No, sir, it wasn't.
Right, when you touched what was there remain, was it hot?
I don't remember it being hot, not like to burn me. It was warm outside, so it wasn't like it was on fire currently or enough to burn me. But it was, I guess, ambient temperature.
There'll be a number of expert witnesses. I expect that the state is going to. I keep thinking there's a map up there, but there's not. There's a number of expert witnesses that I believe the state's going to call, kind of talking about how they have mapped out the burn where certain things were found within the burn pile. But you stated that you picked up what I believe you believe to be the skull of Mr. Farris.
I didn't know who, but yes, it appeared to be a skull.
But you picked it up, yes?
I didn't pick it up.
Okay.
I lifted like the corner and let it lay back down to where it was.
Immediately laid it back down.
Yeah, I did not move it.
Okay.
I mean, I didn't pick it up to move it.
You didn't pick it up and hold it in your hand?
No, sir.
You just
I just
rolled
made
it
sure
and
it
put
was.
back.
I just made sure it was like not a rock, and there was,
And that would have been when you made the signal 48?
Yes, sir.
Was Scott Farris standing there when you were doing that?
I assume so. I mean, he walked us back there, and he was still back there when we were leaving. I don't think he left.
Any other family members around?
I do not remember any other family members.
Did you ever remember speaking with my client, Melody Farris?
No, sir.
And did you see her?
I did not.
When you walk down there, and I believe this is important, so take your time to answer this question. Because all of Cherokee County responded following after your signal 48. Did you ever notice any tractor marks near the fire?
I did not notice that.
Did you notice any RTV tire treads? Tire tread, a car tread, any kind of a...
I did not notice.
How about, could you see where horse hoof marks would be somewhere around the fire? Could you see any of that?
I didn't notice anything like that.
Any tools or implements for the fire?
I didn't notice. I wasn't looking for stuff like that either.
Yes, ma'am.
But I did not notice.
Anything else you would remember about that day?
No, sir.
How long did you leave after the signal 48?
Pretty quickly after I called and told them that it was a signal 48 and law enforcement was there, we turned the scene over as quickly as possible, especially for the ambulance to get back in service for, the next emergency call. So we left pretty quickly.
I may have one brief second, Your Honor. That's all I have. Thank you.
There you go. All right, you can sit down. Thank you, ma'am.
Yes, you may call.
All right. That's fine. All right, call your next witness.
This is State called Robert Raleigh.
I'll stretch. Next, turn along. Right here. Pulmonary stuff. Sir, raise your right hand.
Do you solemnly swear affirm that the evidence you about to present in this matter shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Have a seat, state your name for the record, and tell us where you work and what do you do?
Ben Raleigh, work for Cherokee County Sheriff's Department, UPD, been there 11.5 years.
And what do you do at the sheriff's department?
Investigate crimes, car crashes, supervise, and road patrol.
I want to turn your attention now to Thursday, July 5th, 2018, probably right around 1 p.m. Did you respond to 2155 Purcell Lane in Alpharetta, Cherokee County, Georgia?
I did.
Tell the jury what you responded for.
I responded for a person down. Essentially, I guess the son of the mother called and said he'd been to Iraq, seen a person burning before, he knows what it looks like, and I responded as the supervisor.
Where'd you come from?
That person.
How long did it take you to get there?
It took me quite a while.
And when you respond, what do you remember seeing there?
There was some family outside, and there was another deputy at the front porch.
You got your cell phone with you?
I do.
Is it on?
It's, yeah.
Do me a favor, Judge Loud. Can you Google what day of the week is July 5th, 2018? Got it. No, Judge. Judge, I'll tender to evidence now State's Exhibit Raleigh 1, which is a calendar. Did you beat me?
Yes. There you go.
All right, so looking at State's Exhibit Raleigh 1, for your name and your one exhibit there, number 1. July 2018, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, so you respond July 5th, which is a Thursday,
Yes, sir.
about 1 o'clock.
Yes, sir.
And did you have an opportunity to review State's Exhibit Raleigh 2, which is just a portion of your video from your patrol vehicle?
Yes, sir.
Is it fair and accurate and describe you pulling up the driveway?
Yes, sir.
Judge, at this time I'm tendering to evidence State's Exhibit Raleigh 2, which is a clip from his patrol vehicle video. Tendering to evidence. Go ahead. This you?
Yes, sir.
Up at the screen, you can see yourself walking up there.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
When you arrived, where did you go?
I went to the left side of the house,
And where'd you end up?
and then inside the house.
Did you go in the, who did you see in the house? Did you see Melody Farris, the defendant in the house?
Yes, sir.
Now let the record reflect, is this the defendant that you saw in the house?
You know, I believe so.
I
It's
tell
6
you,
years ago. Yes, sir.
she looked like the person that you saw.
Yes, sir.
When you went in, where was she at?
She was on the outside, and then she came on inside.
Did you clear the house?
I did.
Tell the jury what clearing the house is.
So clearing the house is anytime you go on scene, you need to make sure that nothing else is inside the house, and that's just standard operating procedure. What we do.
When you walked in, did the defendant go and get anything from the house?
Yes, sir.
And what was that?
She asked if she could enter the house. She forgot to get 2 rings that were inside her drawer, and I allowed her to do so. And we went inside the house. She went into a junk drawer and pulled out 2 rings and put them on her ring.
Where was this in the house? Do you know?
It was on inside the kitchen.
Kitchen area.
Yes, sir.
And then after that, what happened?
And then she left. She went back outside.
At any point while you were out there, were you, I guess, tasked with doing security or making sure nothing was getting moved, things like that?
Yes, sir.
Did you ever smell anything?
Yes, sir.
Tell the jury what you smelled.
Just like cleaning solution, like bleach. It was a very faint odor.
Remember anything about a candle?
Yes. The candle was reflected in my report. I can't remember exactly the candle. It was 6 years ago.
But there was a candle burning in the house?
Yes, sir.
Nothing further. Swear.
Yes, sir.
Corporal, I'm John Luke Weaver, and I represent Melody Farris. So, what you just summed up, was that, how long were you there that day?
I was there for a while. I mean, if it happened at 1 o'clock, I wasn't relieved until about 5:30, 6 o'clock.
So, you were there 4 or 5 hours.
Sure.
And you were the first one to respond, the Cherokee County Sheriff's Office?
Incorrect.
Okay. Who was?
I believe it was Beyond CAD, but I know that I relieved Deputy Moss at the time.
All right. So there had already been a number of people there by the time you got there.
Sure.
And you walk in. Were you the first person to talk to Miss Farris that you know of?
I don't know.
Had anybody else? So you walked in the house immediately once you got there.
I don't remember.
All right. And you walked in the house and you immediately smelled. What did you say you smelled?
The odor like a cleaning solution, like bleach.
All right. Did you walk into a laundry room? Did you notice there was a laundry room close by when you walked in the house?
I don't remember.
Okay, you don't remember. And a candle. What did you say? You smelled a candle burn?
I believe there was it reflected in my report that there was a candle. I don't recall.
Because you don't recall the candle.
Correct.
Then why would you write in a report that this candle was important to you, but you don't remember what it was?
Because that's 6 years ago.
Is it unusual for people to have a candle burning in their house?
Sure. Is it unusual?
Yes. Is it unusual? Or is it usual?
Yeah.
It's normal.
Correct.
So why was that unusual to you?
I don't know.
And is it unusual for people to clean their houses?
Yeah, that's standard.
Standard. And when you walk into a house, some of them smell clean, correct?
Sure.
All right. And would this have been any more different than if you walked into anybody's clean house? Yours, for example.
No.
Go ahead, Ben.
Okay, hold on, one more.
All right, so you cleared this house, yes?
Correct.
And was anybody else with you?
I believe Deputy Moss.
And when you cleared this house, did you notice anything else out of place?
I don't know.
Okay. Did you notice any blood splatter?
No, sir.
Did you notice any droplets of blood?
No, sir.
Did you notice a bullet surreptitiously placed in the floor in the basement?
No, sir.
Okay. Nothing else. You just noticed maybe the smell of, you say bleach, maybe.
Yeah, cleaning solution, bleach.
And a candle.
Yes, sir.
But you don't remember what the candle smelled. Anything else? What,
Thank you. Deputy, we'll follow up on this. Candle, I think you were in the kitchen, is that right?
Correct.
And would, say it's been 6 years?
Yes.
Don't remember everything?
No.
You write a report?
Yes, sir.
Or taught to write something significant or important to put in your report?
Absolutely.
Would it refresh your memory, your recollection, to be able to look at your report and see what you said or wrote down about the candle?
Yes.
With all this technology now, I have the reports on my laptop. So what I want you to do is take my laptop, hold it to yourself. Is that your report?
Yes, sir.
Do me a favor, go ahead and just read it to yourself, don't read it out loud. Go to the section at the bottom there where it talks about the candle. All right, now being in the kitchen, there was a door. Where was the candle at?
I don't remember I mean, it was a big house. I don't remember exactly where the candle was.
Okay. Do you remember what room it is?
No, sir.
Do you now recall what you wrote in your report where the candle was?
Yeah, the candle was being lit in front of the basement door.
Approach time. Basement door.
Yes, sir.
Did you take any photos from where this candle was?
No, sir.
Are you aware of any being taken of this candle?
I'm not sure.
Okay. Did you ever look in the dining room where the candle was?
Again, I couldn't even tell you where the dining room was.
All right. And you couldn't tell me where the laundry room was either.
Correct.
That's all.
All right, anything else?
No, Your Honor.
All right, step down.
Thanks, sir.
All right, all right. Getting behind, but the attorneys have said that the next witness is going to be lengthy, and they don't want to start for 30 minutes and then break for the evening and then start back in the morning. So we're going to recess today. Y'all report back in the morning at, I want y'all here at 8:45 in the jury room. So that means y'all need to get here before that downstairs. There'll be someone, like I said, at your parking spaces. Anyone know where are they under the deck? Anyone have any idea? Drive around till you see someone who will direct you where you're supposed to go, or you see cones. There'll be some orange cones when you come in. I believe they're going to be under the parking deck. So when you pull in straight from the street entrance, go under the parking deck, and I think it'll either be under the parking deck or that first row in front of the parking deck. But they're probably going to put them under the deck in case we have weather, and that way y'all are not in the rain. So look for the orange cones or tape blocking off. There should be someone there directing you where to go. That way we don't worry about having a place for y'all to park when we have hundreds of people here throughout the trial. It's critically important, everything I've told you so far about not talking to anyone about the case, looking up anything about the case, the witnesses, the parties, reviewing anything about the trial. There is multiple sources of what y'all have already observed on the internets right now. Don't watch any of it. If someone brings it to your attention, ignore it. If it pops up in your feed, ignore it. All those things. And again, if anything significant happens, let us know, and we'll address that in the morning. Does anybody have any questions or concerns about what y'all are supposed to do between now and tomorrow? If there are any issues that come up overnight, if someone gets sick, something like that, call the jury phone number, leave a message. They'll check the phone first thing when and send an email to them, whatever they want you to do. But check in with that, and they will call you in the first thing in the morning and give you all direction on what to do. And we will bring you in and accommodate whatever we can, how best we can. All right, anything else we need to take up before I dismiss the jurors? All right. I told the bailiff to instruct y'all if y'all want to bring in some snacks or drinks or things like that, y'all can use bailiff can put them in my fridge. Anything else? All right, and we'll recess for the day. See y'all in the morning. think we had, I think we had talked, Mr. Weaver, Mr. Ray, that y'all had talked to your client about sidebars. Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Let's put that on the record. So, I think we talked about it, Ms. Farris, but I don't think we specifically went on the record with it. We just had a short sidebar. As I indicated to the jury, we're not gonna do anything substantive over there. We huddled up over there, and the state said our next witness is going to be lengthy, and we would rather call them tomorrow instead of going forward today. I asked your attorneys, and they said that's fine with us. That is most likely going to be the nature of anything that we talk about on the side. You have the right to be present for anything in regard to your trial, and there are a couple of Supreme Court decisions that say that a bench conference is in fact a critical stage and part of the trial, and you have the right to be present. But as a practical matter, sending the jury out to the jury room while we do something like that can be counterproductive and disruptive. So you agree to waive your presence for those type bench conferences? You need to say yes on the record. All right. She indicates that's okay. As I said, I will do my best. If anything substantive comes up, I will stop it, and we will send the jury out and take it up outside their presence. And if there's anything else that we need to take up, we would bring it and give you an opportunity to address it during the next break. But I plan on it just being logistical things like that. All right. Anything else we need to take up before we break for the day?
What do you think about the schedule last tomorrow? Go long until.
I'd like to go at least till 5. Shoot for 5:30 every day,
Okay.
and
Break at noon for lunch, or?
we'll break 12:30 and break for an hour and 15 minutes tomorrow. I'm not bringing in food tomorrow, but we may do that on Wednesday.
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. Anything else?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. We'll be in recess. Thank y'all.
And we did, excuse me.
Yes. And y'all have your conference room, but y'all can leave whatever you want in here or in your remote office in the building.
And that concludes day 1 of the husband burned murder trial in the state of Georgia versus Melody Walker Farris here on the Outcast Podcast. Day 2 will be coming soon. Y'all have a wonderful day.